Hopefully see you on Friday to Britain's Newsroom as well. We'll be very exciting. Well, Autumn of Discontent is underway, isn't it? We're going to be going live to migrant strikes in Liverpool, as well as what does 5 a day mean to Nigel Farage and who has thrown another royal under the bus on the Epstein case. We'll see you after the weather.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. It's a bank holiday weekend for many parts of the UK. Initially quite cloudy, particularly through today, but there will be some sunny spells in places. You can see that high pressure over the UK at the moment. It should hold on for the next few days before then low pressure starts moving in from the Atlantic to give a bit more of an unsettled flavour as we go through next week. But lots of cloud around through this afternoon. There'll be some bright or sunny spells, best of the sunshine most likely across southwestern parts of England and perhaps northeast Scotland as well. But overall, a lot of cloud around, could be some light rain and drizzle across parts of Northern Ireland, Western Scotland, Northern England too. Temperatures here, the high teens to low 20s, perhaps up to 23 or 24 across southwest England in the best of the sunny spells. Into this evening time, some glimmers of sunshine across northeast Scotland here, temperatures 15 to 17 Celsius. A weak weather front giving some patchy light rain across western parts, which also is more evident across Northern Ireland here. 1 or 2 heavier showers possible too. The cloud thick enough for some drizzle over the high ground of Northern England into Wales as well. Otherwise, a lot of cloud to end the day. There'll be some bright or sunny spells that push through from time to time ahead of dusk. And then as we go through the evening and overnight, it should be largely dry. There will be variable amounts of cloud. Cloud thick enough for some light rain and drizzle across Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland once more, perhaps down the east coast of England too. There could be some mist and fog patches forming with light winds, and generally with more cloud around, temperatures higher than recent nights, so double figures for all. And a mixed start to Sunday morning. Some outbreaks of rain across western Scotland to start the day. Elsewhere, some bright or sunny spells. And I'm hopeful as we go through the day, there should be more in the way of sunshine across most parts. But the cloud will bubble up as we move through into the afternoon, so the sunshine will come and go. But it should just generally feel warmer for everyone, and temperatures a little higher too, reaching the mid-20s a little more widely. See you again later.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could win your mortgage or rent paid for a whole year. That's a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, right up to a whopping £20,000. Plus, we'll add an extra £5,000 on top for good measure. Make sure you don't miss out as lines close on the 29th of August. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record. You say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is 12 o'clock on Saturday, the 23rd of August. Happy bank holiday weekend. This is, of course, the weekend on GB News. Well, a fresh wave of protest is expected this weekend outside asylum hotels. That's as the Home Office moves to appeal after being blocked from intervening in the Epping High Court case.
Yes, real pressure here in Liverpool. Already 2 arrests as 2 opposite protests face one another down. The police, for just a few moments, were under pressure, but now this huge line of officers has came in place. We'll have more very shortly.
You've been Keir Starmer's political prisoner?
Absolutely. And me and several other people. Like I said, it's important to remember that it wasn't just me.
Poor damning stuff there. Lucy Connelly breaks her silence, accusing Sir Keir Starmer of making her a political prisoner in her first interview since her release. And Chancellor Rachel Reeves is accused of plotting a stealth tax raid, with freezes on income tax thresholds and higher gambling levies on the table in her autumn budget. Meanwhile, Nigel Farage unveils his mass deportations blueprint, pledging 5 flights a day to remove small boat migrants and taking Britain out of key international agreements. And Sir Keir Starmer is accused of betraying Britain's farmers again, as Labour pledges to back homegrown food is left in tatters. And get this, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle could be involved in a new Princess Diana documentary, with Netflix eyeing a project to mark the 30 years since her death. Well, a big show for you coming up. I'm Alex Armstrong, and the weekend starts right here. I love reading out your says. I really do. John here said, is Dawn off today because of the result of the Chelsea result? Well, I don't think she's off because she's coming on in a few hours' time. So you can ask yourself, John. Of course, if you've got more thoughts, let me know, gbnews.com/your say. But let's get your headlines with Bethany Elsie.
Good afternoon. Your top stories from the GB newsroom at 2 minutes past 12. Nigel Farage has vowed that if he becomes Prime Minister, 5 deportation flights would leave the UK every day under plans to tackle illegal immigration. In an interview with The Times, the Reform UK leader says Britain is facing what he calls a massive crisis, and the only way forward is to detain and deport all migrants who arrive illegally. His plans would take Britain out of the European Convention on Human Rights and opt out of the UN Convention Against Torture, as well as other international agreements. Nationwide protests and counter-protests are expected to be held outside hotels housing asylum seekers this afternoon. Demonstrations under the Abolish Asylum System slogan will be held in major towns and cities across England, including Bristol, Liverpool, Newcastle and central London. Protesters with the group Stand Up to Racism will also be out in force. Lucy Connelly has accused Sir Keir Starmer of holding her as a political prisoner and says she's considering legal action against the police. The 42-year-old was jailed for stirring up racial hatred against asylum seekers online after the Southport murders last year. The former childminder and wife of a Conservative councillor was released from HMP Peterborough on Thursday. Miss Connelly will meet officials from Donald Trump's administration later today to discuss her concerns around freedom of speech in Britain. Ghislaine Maxwell has told US officials she never saw President Donald Trump act inappropriately. In an interview with the US Justice Department in July, the convicted sex trafficker said President Trump was, quote, always very cordial and very kind. Miss Maxwell, who is serving a 20-year prison sentence for helping Jeffrey Epstein sexually abuse underage girls, also denied any knowledge of a client list. The interview transcript was released as pressure is mounting on the Justice Department to disclose more information about its Epstein probe. At least 5 people have been killed and many others injured after a tour bus crashed and rolled over on a major road in upstate New York. The bus was returning to New York City from Niagara Falls with 54 passengers on board when the driver lost control. Several people were thrown from the bus as the windows shattered, while some became trapped in the wreckage. Lyle Menendez, the older of the notorious brothers who were jailed for murdering their parents in Los Angeles in 1989, has been denied parole. It comes a day after his brother Eric Menendez received the same ruling. The pair, now aged 57 and 54, were given life sentences without the chance of parole 30 years ago after killing their parents with a shotgun at their Beverly Hills home. But both appealed for release after a judge reduced their sentences earlier this year. They claim they acted in self-defence. If you're headed on a trip this bank holiday weekend, be warned there'll be long delays on the roads and disruption to train services. The RAC is urging drivers to set off as early as possible or be prepared to stay longer in traffic. Members of the RMT union who work at the train operator Cross Country are walking out today and Monday, affecting services throughout the long weekend. A Network Rail are warning passengers some major routes will be closed for engineering work. And Pob Luck Cymru, the Princess of Wales, has wished Wales women good luck as they kick off their Rugby World Cup campaign against Scotland. This will be the third World Cup meeting between the two sides after Wales defeated Scotland in the 1994 quarter-final and during the pool stage in 2022. But Scotland have won each of their last 3 tests against Wales outside of the series. Kick-off at Salford Community Stadium is at 2:45. Those are the latest headlines. I'll have more for you in half an hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Thank you, Bethany. Well, it's an autumn of discontent, isn't it? It's very much underway. We're going to get stuck right into it now as protests outside hotels housing migrants are taking place across the country this weekend again. Counter-protesters are also gathering outside such hotels, including demonstrations from the infamous group, Stand Up to Racism. The latest round of protests come as the Home Office will seek to appeal against the High Court's refusal to allow it to intervene in the case of the Asylum Hotel in Epping. Well, joining me live from Liverpool is GB News reporter Doogie Beattie. Doogie, what is going on there in Liverpool? Good to see you back from Benidorm. You've got a lovely tan, by the way. You're looking fantastic. But what is going on there in Liverpool?
Well, it's starting to kick off here in Liverpool. We have anti-immigration protesters here, and they're not actually due to assemble to 1 o'clock. And on the other side of us, we have pro-immigration protesters. There's already been 2 arrests as both sides came in. The police moved very, very quickly at that stage. You can actually see the Merseyside police have a line the whole way across and right along the top, trying to keep both sides apart. To be honest about it, to see trouble that early on really is quite disturbing because it shows you the venom that is in in this. One young lad that was walking in who was anti-immigration, had his face covered, he was immediately arrested. And the second one, a young girl decided to start attacking one of the people from the pro-immigration side. So it has been quite venomous, and you can really feel it between both sides. Now, one side, I must say, the pro-immigration side look to be very well funded. They have loud hailers, they have PA systems, etc., and all very nicely printed signs. The other side, not so much. No high-vis jackets, no real organisation or wealth behind them, but they are starting to gather in numbers here, particularly in the anti-immigration side are now starting, the numbers are starting to swell as that 1 o'clock deadline starts to come. Earlier on, I managed to get a word with one man who is pro-immigration. I don't know if we have that clip yet.
France offered to build a processing centre at Calais. The British government at the time, which Conservative, said no. The Labour government for over a year now have said no. So we're going to get boats. We're going to get boats.
So what's your answer?
Well, get the processing centre or make the processing faster.
Economically.
Can't just turn up today and say, hey, listen, you've got no right to be here.
But
who are we?
Economically,
who are we?
At this minute,
yeah, economically, they can't work. Why not get them to work? Why not get people who want to come to the country, put them out, yeah, you can work.
Yes, well, you can hear one of the pro-immigration people there saying that he's not against immigration. Of course he's not, but he wants people to work when they come here. And of course, that will cause unions problems because that will start to drive the price of wages down. And is there enough jobs here already? Many of these people on the anti-immigration side, you can see that some of them are not working. A lot of pensioners in amongst this side as well. And those from the classes that would be more concerned about their own personal wealth, their housing stock, etc. So you do now really see the difference between, I hate to admit it, but nearly enough the public sector, those in universities, and what we would normally have called the working classes of Britain. There is a gap starting to appear, and in Liverpool, one of the most multicultural cities, it is a shame to see it.
Oh, Doogie, please keep us posted on all the latest that's coming out of Liverpool there. Thank you very much for reporting live from those scenes. We'll be back to Doogie on the top of each hour, so stay tuned for more on that. I'll just read a couple of your comments on that while I'm at it. Andy says, why are police allowing masks at a peaceful protest? It's a good question. Everyone wants to know that because I thought we were moving past that point with the law changes, but obviously not. Dakar Raji here says, does anyone else find it hypocritical that the government says that a court's judgment must be respected when it goes with their wishes, but when a judgment is wrong and will be appealed, it goes against their agenda? Well, there you go again, isn't it? Sometimes people are saying this is two-tier. There we go. And talking of that, let's move on to Lucy Connelly, who has accused Sir Keir Starmer of holding her as a political prisoner and says it was bizarre she had to spend more time more than a year behind bars.
Have you been Keir Starmer's political prisoner?
Absolutely. And me and several other people, like I said, it's important to remember that it wasn't just me. I, for some reason, seem to have had the most coverage, but there are people that are in equally awful situations that shouldn't be in there, and we should also be fighting for them and remembering them, and when they come out, give them the same support as what I'm getting from people as well.
Yeah, damning stuff there, in my opinion. While speaking to the Telegraph, she said she's considering legal action against the police as she explained she believes they were dishonest in what they released. It all comes as she gears up to meet Trump officials later on today. And I'm now joined by cultural historian Philip Kisley. Philip, thank you so much for joining me on this. Of course, we've all seen these interviews now. These are quite damning, in my opinion, on at least on the current state of the country, on free speech, on how the government might have handled this situation. Philip, what's your take after watching all of those interviews with Lucy?
Yeah, it's an extraordinary thing to see, really. I think she's very grateful that she's got support. She's got more than support, Alex. I think there's an outpouring of love for her, actually, in this country, for many, many reasons. We see how vulnerable she is. She is not broken, though. She survived this ordeal, and that is hugely important, because I was talking about this Thursday and Friday, and I was saying, well, what is she going to do? You know, before before this interview broke. Is she going to come out fighting, or is she just going to go away quietly and lick her wounds? I mean, she's obviously decided to come out fighting, and the great thing about it is she's so articulate, she's so reasonable, but she has this kind of steeliness about her, which is great to see. And she is, of course, she's a symbol, isn't she? She's a symbol of two-tier injustice. She's a symbol of everything that's going on in this country, but she's also a catalyst as well, okay? And I think what's been happening in this country, the swell of discontent, the kind of activism that's happening right across the country. Doogie's just been reporting about it now. I think she's something to do with that as well, because this comes from a discontent about what's happening in the country with immigration hotels, with uncontrolled mass immigration and all of those kinds of things, and fear and danger on the streets, danger towards women and children. And she taps into that, and it's her ordinariness, Alex. It's the fact that she's a mother. It's the fact that she's, a daughter, a wife, and she's a stay-at-home mum, a childminder, all of those things. Those are so important. It's almost as though ordinary people like me and you, are standing up against this injustice and saying no, and she's right at the forefront.
Yeah, I think I think you nailed that there, Philip. She, that ordinary person who feels like, I think some of the comments she was saying, I can't remember which interview I was watching, but she said something along the lines of, this could happen to anybody. Did I ever expect to be in prison? Did I ever expect to go to prison for something I'd said? And I think that really touched me when I saw that part of the interview. But Philip, just a slightly different angle here, because there's a lot. I don't want to sort of regurgitate the same old talking points. You're a cultural historian. What other moments in British history do you think there is a sense that this could be similar to, or perhaps not even British history, global history?
Well, I think, for me, I keep thinking, I'm not thinking about individuals here, right? I'm thinking about epoch change. I'll come back to that in a minute, okay? I don't think this is about individuals. She is I keep talking about her as a symbol, as a catalyst, and in some ways, maybe that's unfair to her, because she is a person. She's gone through this, and we have to understand the individual trauma she's been through. But there is something happening in this country, Alex. It's changing. I know you feel it because you're reporting on this stuff on a daily basis. I feel it because I'm commentating on it on a daily basis. And it reminds me of being a teenager in the late 80s, when all of the seismic change in Eastern Europe was happening, when the Berlin Wall came down. I was in Hungary when Ceausescu, the Romanian dictator, was deposed, and all of that massive change. So that kind of global change, or that European change, it felt like something was happening. It was exciting on a daily basis. This is happening on a national level, right? And it's a similar kind of thing. It feels as though the old values, this tradition we've had since the post-war era, I call it the liberal era, it's kind of eating away at itself, and it's become the opposite of what it purports to be. It's become authoritarian. Identity politics has made it authoritarian. And so we've come to the end of that era. And I think Lucy is she's almost one of the bricks that put in place to build this foundation, this new foundation, which should be about freedom of speech, which should be about the individual, which should be about standing up to the machine, which should be about reality, which shouldn't be about the ridiculous excesses of identity politics that pitch kind of races against each other and sexes against each other. And I think we're coming to, you might call it a small C conservative revolution, and I think something's happening there, and she's a great figurehead for that.
And Philip, just briefly, because obviously we're hearing reports that Lucy Connelly will be meeting with the Trump administration soon. We're not exactly sure when, but perhaps as early as today. What sort of outcome do we think we should expect from that? I mean, we've had a delegation of Americans over here. We were reporting on that not that long ago, maybe even just a couple of weeks ago. Do we expect to hear more from the Americans on this case, or do you think they'll sort of have like an overview of what's happening in Britain and discuss this with the Prime Minister, perhaps?
I think it'll be a bit of both, Alex, actually, okay, because I think it's very important to them. I think J.D. Vance has already said he doesn't want to do business with a country that doesn't value freedom of speech, and I don't blame him. So I think that whole idea of freedom of speech and justice and, you know, fairness is very important to the Trump administration. They've done more for democracy in the last kind of few months than the previous administrations did for years, you know. So I think it's very important to them. It's also, again, it's the same thing. It's very symbolic, isn't it? When Trump gets involved, it's going to be a massive media circus. And I think that's ordinarily, I would say that isn't necessarily a good thing. But for this, it does need to be a good thing. It needs to be a massive media circus. But the most important thing, Alex, is we need to forensically understand what happened to her. It's about process, you know. So she was taken into custody straight away. She was on remand. She wasn't given any time to think about how she was going to plead. She thought immediately, because of the media circus, because of what Keir Starmer said about her, that she wouldn't get a fair trial anyway. She was traumatized. She wanted to get back to her child. The only thing she was thinking about was, how do I get home to my child? How do I get back to her? So she wasn't thinking clearly. All of that stuff needs to be addressed. All of that stuff needs to be put under a very harsh, cold light. And we need justice. That's what we need. We need to push back on this, and we need what's right, and we need what's fair.
Oh, always brilliant. Philip Kisley, cultural historian, thank you so much for joining me as ever. Well, just the Northamptonshire police spokesperson has said this. We are aware of comments made by Lucy Connelly in an interview following her release from prison. We hope to contact Mrs Connelly in the coming days to understand the issues she has raised around Northamptonshire police. OK, well, we'll be reporting more on that, of course, as it develops. And it's time now for something a bit different. It's a Great British Giveaway. And you could win and live mortgage or rent-free for a year and have £5,000 cash for yourself. And if you don't have a mortgage or a rent, you can get 15 grand instead. So here's all the details you need. Make sure you don't miss out.
It's the final week to see how you could win your mortgage or rent paid for a whole year. That's a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, right up to a whopping £20,000. Plus, we'll add an extra £5,000 on top for good measure. And if you don't have a mortgage or rent to pay, lucky you, we'll give you £15,000 tax-free cash instead. Hurry, lines close this Friday. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck, everybody. You're with me, of course, Alex Armstrong here on GB News. Here are some live shots of protests in Hawley, by the way. You can see there protesters are gathering. You can see some of the signs there. Someone's got an umbrella because it's a pretty lovely bank holiday weekend, isn't it? Look at those shots there. OK, well, we'll be more coming up on that throughout the show today, so stay tuned. And coming up, Nigel Farage has unveiled his mass deportation blueprint, pledging 5 flights a day to remove small boat migrants. And, of course, taking Britain out of key international agreements to make it all work. But will it work? That's the key question we'll be asking. All of that and so much more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Thank you, Sam. Now from one Iceman to another, because British ultramarathon swimmer Ross Edgley is currently undertaking an astonishing 1,000-mile swim around Iceland after being inspired by the Thor character and the actor Chris Hemsworth. Well, this challenge, described as the Great Icelandic Swim, is expected to take about 3 months. And it's seen Ross swim already for 6 hours and then rest for 6 hours in a continuous cycle of torture. Now, along the way, he has faced challenging conditions, including rough waters, killer whales and freezing temperatures. I'm delighted to say I'm now joined by the Iceman, the British Thor, Ross Edgley, live from Iceland. Ross, it's an absolute delight to have you, and I'm just delighted to get a connection to Iceland. Sometimes we struggle to get people here in London. Listen, mate, you sound like an absolute man-mountain. What on earth drove you towards this epic challenge?
Oh, thanks, Martin. Yeah, it was, like I said, I was joking with Chris because I just love Icelandic folklore, the sagas, mythology. And we just said, look, swimming around Iceland, it would be the closest thing to Asgard that you could possibly do. So it was kind of, it started as a semi-joke. And then 3 months later, here we are, 800 miles in, lost parts of my tongue, a lot of chafing around my shoulders and stuff. But we were still going, 200 miles left, home straight is in sight.
So we're doing it for charity? What's behind it?
It's exactly that, Martin. Yeah, so all the way we're going around, we're working with scientists to collect eDNA samples, so they're environmental DNA samples. So it just means that anything in the water, whether it's a minke whale, an orca, a Ross Edgley, anything, it leaves behind a sample. And so by collecting all of these samples, what we're going to be left with is this incredible map of biodiversity around Iceland in a level of detail we've never seen before. So what's amazing, scientists said, look, if someone is crazy enough to try and swim around it, this could be really valuable for us.
GB News. From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country. There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor. Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Weekend with me, Alex Armstrong. Well, the leader of Reform UK, Nigel Farage, has pledged that 5 deportation flights would leave the UK every single day under his immigration plans. Well, he also announced plans to house asylum seekers in detention centres on military bases and potentially send some to British overseas territories, such as Ascension Island. Well, joining me to discuss this is a senior fellow at the Centre for Migration Control, Tom Jones. Tom, thank you so much for joining me. Lovely to see you, my friend. What do you make of these latest plans? I know there's been lots of discussion about this, and you may be one to say that Farage perhaps has flip-flopped on this, but there was always a plan to put something in, and that's been taking a little while, but now we've got it. What do you make of it?
Well, I think you're quite right. Farage has taken a long time to come up with a plan on illegal immigration, which is slightly odd for a party that bases itself so heavily in its appeal on this one particular issue. But I think you can kind of forgive the delay, given the scale of this plan, frankly. So I think the plan is that it will cost about £10 billion. It will be in for 5 years. I mean, the scale of this, the scale of the changes that Nigel Farage is talking about bringing in, it really does cover all bases. So I think probably it's fair to say it's been worth the wait, given the scale of this policy.
Yeah, and we're looking at things here like arresting asylum seekers on arrival, automatic detention, then forced deportation, no rights of repeal to countries such as Afghanistan and Eritrea, and then, of course, that fallback option here to overseas territories like Ascension Island. That has caused a slight stir with some people because people are saying, well, actually, I don't want them to go to another British island. I just want them to go straight home. What is it about this fallback? Actually, what do you make of this fallback plan?
I think the fallback is just that. It is a fallback. It's very much an option, basically, if the system continues to be overwhelmed. But I think the scale of challenges, the scale of changes that we're seeing means that probably Ascension Island won't be used. But in the short term, if there are sudden migration surges, then they might have to be moved out to Ascension Island, just because the system will not be able to process them that quickly. And so I think that's that's what the Ascension Island element is for. But the idea is, in general, Farage has put a lot of emphasis in this plan in massively ramping up detention centres on surplus RAF bases whilst people await deportation. So I think it's just a fallback in case the bigger system that he's going to create is overwhelmed in the short term.
Well, why would we not explore something like a bigger version of the Rwanda plan instead of them sending them to a different British island? Why is that? Is that because it would be too complex and too expensive?
So as part of this deal, he has actually pledged to explore deals with third countries. I think he suggested Rwanda again and Albania. The problem is with that, of course, is that faces a lot of legal challenges from, blob adjacent lawyers that you and I are very familiar with. And I'm sure most of your lawyers will be, most of your viewers will be as well. So having Ascension Island as a fallback to that, I think makes a lot of sense.
And I want to talk about these two words, mass deportations. They seem to have captured at least 50% of the country when we're looking at this YouGov poll that came out not that long, I think it was a couple of weeks ago. Do you think now there is a demand for this? Do you think there is now it's the Overton window has shifted and the British public have had enough and they say, actually, we do want mass deportations? Do you think that that's where we're at now? Do you think that call is going to get even larger towards the next election?
Yes, frankly, yes, I do. Particularly as the system continues to be completely overwhelmed. I saw an insane stat on Twitter the other day that was from the Centre for Policy Studies, wonderful Carl Williams. I think if arrivals continue at the current rate, which is 124 a day, if they continue at the current rate, there will be, I think, 181,000 Channel migrants by the date of the next general election. Wow. This is basically, it's the speed, it's the sheer numbers of people coming in. The system is completely overwhelmed. The British people have been talking about reducing immigration for 25 years since it started, and I think they've just had enough.
And let's talk about the Conservative Party for a second. Kemi Badenoch is doing this big policy review on all these issues. Are the Tories just falling behind on this topic? Surely, in my opinion, they should be coming out stronger because they're being criticised constantly for basically creating this problem. Is Kemi Badenoch just fallen behind with all this sort of dithering when Reform, a much smaller party by all standards, at least on MPs, is able to push out a policy that seems relatively comprehensive? Why is that?
Your guess is as good as mine, frankly, Alex. She really is being outpaced, not just by Reform, but by the actual pace of politics. She seems to think that she's got a lot more time than she has. But by not saying anything, we've got a lot of ground to make up for on immigration because of 14 years of failure, 14 years of near consecutive all-time high immigration figures. This is the one issue that we really, really have to work hard on. And so now Reform have put down this marker. I don't think we have any choice but to go to the right. I think we should probably be looking at changes to indefinite leave to remain to set right the Boris wave that we brought in when we were in power. But really, it is very, very slow. Kemi Badenoch's leadership is very, very, very glacial almost. And compared to Reform, they are an insurgent party and they act like it because they've spotted this gap that the Conservatives have left completely open and they've gone and seized it.
And do you think this mass deportations plan goes far enough? I mean, we use these two words quite loosely because I don't think there's a one standard definition of what mass deportations are amongst at least the online public. Do you think they go far enough, these plans?
I think this would be a huge step to solving Britain's illegal migration problem. Yes, I think they're probably good enough for now. This would really kind of solve a lot of the pull issues and a lot of the things preventing us from returning migrants. I think one of the problems that we have when we talk about mass deportations is because the agenda there is being set by Trump. It's a living thing that people are catching up to. I mean, the other day, the Trump administration began a review of all 55 million people with US visas for potential deportable violations. That is a huge product and a huge step change. So I think basically we're constantly catching up with what's going on in America, but I think this is certainly a step in the right direction, and frankly, reform should be commended for it.
Well, there we go. We might have more to come on that, perhaps. Tom Jones, the Senior Fellow at the Centre for Migration Control. Thank you so much for joining me, as ever, my friend. Well, you're with me, Alex Armstrong, here on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show, but now it's your news headlines.
Hello, the headlines from the GB newsroom. Nigel Farage has vowed that if he becomes Prime Minister, 5 deportation flights carrying illegal migrants would leave the UK every day. Protesters and counter-protesters are gathering outside hotels housing migrants in towns and cities across England, Scotland and Wales. Connelly, who was jailed for inciting racial hatred after the Southport murders, has accused Sir Keir Starmer of holding her as a political prisoner and says she's considering legal action against the police. Convicted sex trafficker and associate of Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, has told US officials that she never saw President Donald Trump act inappropriately. And millions expected to travel on the roads and rail network this bank holiday weekend are being warned of long delays. Those are the headlines for now. More at the top of the hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB Digital Radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Thanks, Bethany. Let me just read out one of your states quickly here. Mary says the Conservatives are lost if they don't get a strong leader. Badenoch is nowhere. They need their new Maggie and they need him or her quickly. Let's see what happens there, Mary. If you want more of your views read out, of course, gbnews.com/your state to join in the conversation. But more coming up on today's show. Sir Keir Starmer is accused of betraying Britain's farmers again as Labour pledges to back homegrown food fails to deliver. All of that and more to come. I'm Alex Armstrong and you're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. It's a bank holiday weekend for many parts of the UK. Initially quite cloudy, particularly through today, but there will be some sunny spells in places. You can see that high pressure over the UK at the moment. It should hold on for the next few days before then low pressure starts moving in from the Atlantic to give a bit more of an unsettled flavour as we go through next week. But lots of cloud around through this afternoon. There'll be some bright or sunny spells, best of the sunshine most likely across southwestern parts of England and perhaps northeast Scotland as well. But overall, a lot of cloud around, could be some light rain and drizzle across parts of Northern Ireland, Western Scotland, Northern England too. Temperatures here, the high teens to low 20s, perhaps up to 23 or 24 across southwest England in the best of the sunny spells. Into this evening time, some glimmers of sunshine across northeast Scotland here, temperatures 15 to 17 Celsius. A weak weather front giving some patchy light rain across western parts, which also is more evident across Northern Ireland here. 1 or 2 heavier showers possible too. The cloud thick enough for some drizzle over the high ground of Northern England into Wales as well. Otherwise, a lot of cloud to end the day. There'll be some bright or sunny spells that push through from time to time ahead of dusk. And then as we go through the evening and overnight, it should be largely dry. There will be variable amounts of cloud. Cloud thick enough for some light rain and drizzle across Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland once more, perhaps down the east coast of England too. There could be some mist and fog patches forming with light winds and generally with more cloud around. Temperatures higher than recent nights, so double figures for all. And a mixed start to Sunday morning. Some outbreaks of rain across western Scotland to start the day. Elsewhere, some bright or sunny spells. And I'm hopeful as we go through the day, there should be more in the way of sunshine across most parts. But the cloud will bubble up as we move through into the afternoon, so the sunshine will come and go. But it should just generally feel warmer for everyone, and temperatures a little higher too, reaching the mid-20s a little more widely. See you again later.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back to The Weekend with me, Alex Armstrong. Well, the Prime Minister is facing fresh accusations of betrayal from farmers following Labour's failure to deliver a key manifesto pledge to support British-grown food. Before the election, Labour promised that half of all food bought by the public sector would be locally produced. But a new report from the Countryside Alliance has revealed it's not being met, with just 2 government departments currently sourcing the majority of their food from British producers. So, is the Prime Minister failing British farmers once again? Well, joining me now is Parliament and Government Relations Manager at the Countryside Alliance, David Bean. David, thank you so much for joining me. More bad news for farmers, isn't it? Is this a failure of their manifesto pledge?
Good afternoon, Alex. Thank you. Yes, I would say that it does tend to suggest that, yes. The public sector has an immense potential to support Britain's struggling food and farming sector through the money that it spends on food that it needs to procure for all manner of different reasons. It could be buying food from British producers and suppliers that was ultimately sourced from British farms. But sadly, our report has revealed that it isn't doing that currently. In fact, what we're seeing is that relatively few bodies within the public sector, and this is central government departments as well as local councils, even know where the food that they've been sourcing originates from. And of course, if you aren't tracking the origins of the food you're procuring, then it will be impossible to demonstrate progress against any kind of target to improve the proportions that are coming from the UK.
Yes, and it's certainly not been a good year for farmers so far, has it? Of course, we had the inheritance tax. The government was slammed for that, I believe, by most farmers. But also the weather has also made crop yields substantially down. How damaging is this going to be for farmers over the course of the next year, at least?
Absolutely. Farmers are facing a combination of different problems at the moment. You mentioned the weather. Also, farm gate prices for a great many products are not looking especially strong, even so. So the amount of money that they're able to make from what products they can produce is under considerable pressure. That's why we're so keen to see the public sector being used in its purchasing power to support them, to improve the amount of the size of the market, effectively, that is open to British food producers. But yes, you're quite right. The policy decisions haven't helped either. And certainly the long-term impact of the family farm tax, the changes that the government has made to inheritance tax, could potentially be devastating for many family farms across the country.
David, what is it the government need to do to get farming back to being great in Britain? Because it seems to me that farmers are being attacked on every single angle, and we still import, is it 30% of our food from abroad? That seems likely to go up at this rate. What is it the government need to do?
It does appear that we may be facing additional reliance on imports in the future, and that's not a good place to be as a country. We do need to have a policy that recognizes the value of food as effectively a matter of the security of our country. And in fact, I think it's slightly ironic that the government has a standard line that it's been using for some time now, where they declare that food security is national security. They say that they recognize that. But unfortunately, many of the decisions that they're making, particularly, as I said, around inheritance tax, around the lack of progress that we've seen on public sector food procurement, they don't really seem to be bearing out those words in terms of the policies that are coming through. Now, I mean, clearly the other issue that farmers are facing is that we are at the tail end now of the transition away from the Common Agricultural Policy to domestic sources of subsidy for food and farming. Now, the objective was always to pay farmers public money for public goods, looking particularly about environmental improvements, welfare improvements, that sort of thing. But many farmers have been calling for a long time for the government to recognise the importance of food production as a good in itself, and to make sure that there is still some funding available on top of what is paid for in participation in environmental schemes, simply for increasing food production. And that, I think, is something that there will be growing pressure over the coming years to see the government take some action on.
Well, David Bean, thank you so much for joining me. Parliament and Government Relations Manager at Countryside Alliance there, David Bean. Thank you very much for joining me. Really shaming. It's really shaming, isn't it, that our country can't prioritise our national security, in my opinion, our food. Anyway, in a response, a government spokesperson said this: our commitment to farmers and food producers remains steadfast, which is why we want our farmers to be well placed to bid for a fair share of the £5 billion a year spent on public sector catering contracts. Our new national procurement policy statement and the Procurement Act simplifies the procurement process, removing bureaucratic rules and regulations, opening up new opportunities to small businesses and creating good local jobs. The government is consulting on reforms to go further to strengthen the UK's economic resilience and support British businesses. Well, there you heard it from the government. Well, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here is the forecast for some of our top European destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's a bit of a mixed bag across Europe as we go through the next few days. There is some rain pushing into parts of Portugal, also affecting southwestern Spain as we go into tomorrow, but most of Spain actually having a largely fine day. A few showery outbreaks affecting parts of Italy, Greece and maybe Turkey too, but these won't be as heavy nor as thundery as we've seen recently. And then through into next week, whilst most places will stay largely fine, across some areas, France, Germany for example, the risk of some heavy thundery downpour.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Well, let's read out some of your says here. Ian Mills says this: I have voted Conservative all my life. I have no confidence in Mrs Badenoch. If there were an election tomorrow, what would I do? Vote Conservative as usual, but with no hope of them forming the next government. Vote Reform again and little hope, or abstain. Probably the first. I feel disenfranchised. All I can do is look after myself. Our parties have made me selfish. On anti-immigration, Mary says, if these people supporting immigration feel so strongly, why don't they go and protest and take off their face coverings? They cannot really believe what they're protesting in favour, or they wouldn't be so ashamed. Well, I totally agree, Mary. I don't think you should be allowed to wear a mask at a protest. If you can't say it with literally your face, then why are you saying it? There's a lot of strong feelings about that in your say today. Let me know what you think. Of course, you're with me, Alex Armstrong with GB News here. Lots more coming up on the show today. Get this one. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle could be involved in a new Princess Diana documentary, with Netflix eyeing a project to mark 30 years since her death. All of that and more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record. You say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back to the weekend, of course. Me, Alex Armstrong here. Well, this one's going to send shockwaves, isn't it? Princess Diana documentary is reportedly among the projects Netflix is considering, with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle under their first look deal. As Netflix enters a fresh phase of its deal with the couple, one idea is said to be under discussion is making a documentary marking 30 years since the death of Diana, and that's set to be released potentially in 2027, with Prince Harry playing a key role in its production. Well, joining me now is royal commentator Richard Palmer. Richard, thank you so much for joining me. There's a lot of people very unhappy about the prospect of this idea. I can only wonder why. Do you think that it would be a slap in the face to many people? Perhaps not so much for Prince Harry because it is his mother, but if Meghan Markle is starring in this?
Well, I think first thing to say is it's certainly not being ruled out. I spoke to Harry and Meghan's office this morning, and it was just a straight no comment, refusing to confirm or deny. And I sort of feel that if there was nothing to it, they'd be quick to deny it. And inevitably, the critics will say they're cashing in on Diana's memory, I guess. And yes, I should imagine there'll be quite a lot of controversy about it. But also, I think a lot of people would want to watch it. You may remember that on the 20th anniversary in 2017, William and Harry both took part in a couple of major television documentaries about their mother. And after that, William said, it was William, admittedly not Harry, but William said, we won't be doing anything like this again. They felt they'd set the record straight about their mother. Obviously, things have changed. I mean, Harry was still a working member of the royal family. Now he needs to make money. He and Meghan need to make money from this Netflix deal. They've had a 5-year deal worth a reported £100 million, or $100 million, I should say, which meant that they could produce lots of different programmes. Now they giving Netflix first refusal, but there's no guarantee of money. So I'm sure there'll be a temptation to revert back to stories about their family, to documentaries, films about their family, because that's what people are most interested in, I suspect.
And Richard, I mean, what do you think the public reaction would be to having Meghan Markle star in this? I think perhaps people would be slightly more accepting of Harry, as it is his mother after all. But Meghan Markle, having never met, of course, Princess Diana, being far too young and wasn't involved in the royals at that point in time, has no connection to her whatsoever. So what would there be a backlash to that?
Well, I'm sure there would be in some quarters, because there's a backlash to anything this couple do from some people. I mean, they do divide the country. They divide the world, really. I mean, I was talking to a French publisher yesterday who was just saying we got such a bad reaction last time we ran something about Meghan that we don't really want to do anything for a while again. So it is interesting. I mean, they are trying to. I think they've softened their image a little bit, and they're trying to work certainly with parts of the British media that they haven't wanted to work with for a long time. And I think they are getting a slightly better press, a slightly more forgiving press as a result of that. But they've still got a lot of work to do.
And Richard, just on the royal household here, the actual royal family, not the Montecito royals, how do you think they would respond in a situation like this? Do you think we'd hear from the royal family if a documentary was to be about the life of Princess Diana and didn't star any of the other royals, it was just Harry and Meghan? Do you think you'd hear a comment from the royal household about that?
I don't think they'd want to get involved. I think William is quite relaxed about this. He has always tried to play down any suggestion that he and Harry are rivals as keepers of their mother's flame. He wouldn't want to trample on his brother, I don't think.
OK, well, Richard Palmer, thank you so much for joining Royal Commentator there on that news that potentially a documentary will be started of Harry and Meghan and Princess Diana. Let me just say this to the audience watching at home. I strongly believe, in my strong opinion, that this is a cash cow for Harry and Meghan, and I would much rather they just stopped dragging up the past, move on with their lives and make something of themselves. Stop trying to... Don't you dare try and milk the people's princess. Don't you dare try and make money from that. I have deep sympathy that Harry lost his mother. However, this is not the right thing to do. You're going to tarnish your reputation further with the British public. And you can't make money out of the death of your mother. This ridiculous time after her death, we've settled this across the country. You need to move on, make some money doing things that you actually have worked hard to do. Diana would be rolling in her grave if she heard you're making money out of her using the media, the same thing that destroyed her. So I really implore people not to watch that if it comes out, but I'm sure if you want to watch it, you are more than welcome to. Anyway, that's rant over from me. You're with me, Alex Armstrong on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show. Don't go anywhere. 100 arrests are being made before Notting Hill Carnival. Should it be cancelled? We will be talking about that up next. Here's your weather forecast.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office, and we will see a little bit of rain across the northwest over the next 24 hours, but largely dry elsewhere as we continue through the weekend. High pressure dominating the weather pattern at the moment. I'm hopeful for Sunday there will be a bit more sunshine around than what we've seen through the weekend so far. Lots of cloud out there, some outbreaks of light and patchy rain over the hills of northern England, a few showers for Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland seeing some outbreaks of light rain too. As we head overnight, the clouds should break up a little bit more, but we see some mist and fog patches developing across England and Wales, and with a bit more cloud around for everyone, temperatures will be a little higher than they have been of late, generally starting the day on Sunday in double figures, but a mixed picture, sunny spells across much of England and Wales, a dry start across eastern parts of Scotland with some morning sunshine, but a different story in the west, cloudy here, some outbreaks of rain, some low cloud around the coast, this extending into Northern Ireland too, the risk of some patchy rain in places. But across England and Wales it's generally dry, the cloud could be thick enough at first for a few spots of light rain and drizzle down the east coast, but plenty of sunshine to start the day with any mist and fog patches slowly clearing. And then the day ahead is a brighter day for many. There should be sunny spells. I think as the day goes on the cloud will bubble up across England and Wales, limiting the sunshine at times, and there is the risk of that rain still across western Scotland, just slowly pushing a little further north and eastwards. But temperatures overall should be a little higher on Sunday compared to today, 24, 25 a little more widely, so just feeling warmer out there compared to today. And into the evening time the cloud tends to fade away again, so some sunshine ahead of dusk and most places ending the day dry. Another warm day on Monday, temperatures even higher, could reach 27, 28 Celsius before it turns cooler and more unsettled as we head through the week.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could win your mortgage or rent paid for a whole year. That's a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, right up to a whopping £20,000. Plus, we'll add an extra £5,000 on top for good measure. Make sure you don't miss out as lines close on the 29th of August. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. A bridge between Italy and Sicily was envisaged by the Romans. But just this week, the Italian government has approved the €13.5 billion project. There remain concerns that the money intended for the project could be siphoned off by the Cosa Nostra. Joining us now live from Rome is historian Alexander Mariotti. Alexander, it's absolutely great to see you. Tell me about the Roman plan. How did they intend to get across from the mainland to Sicily?
Well, it seems that, according to the sources, they were successful in 250 BC during the Sicilian Wars. But it was a pontoon bridge. It was a temporary bridge. And the purpose was to transport war elephants across for the Romans. Now, temporary bridge is all really they could have done. And in fact, the fact that there's no bridge today speaks to the difficulty of actually constructing it for a couple of reasons. One of the main ones is just the gale force winds that happen to pass through the Straits of Messina, not to mention that there's an incredible amount of seismic activity that took place. So even the great engineers of the Romans who were able to build the Colosseum did not foresee a feasible bridge that could connect the two pieces of land.
Mm. Now, the seismic risk, yes, indeed. I mean, Messina was devastated in an earthquake. If I recall, at the beginning of the 20th century, you must put me right. But do we think we've dealt with the seismic risk?
Well, you're absolutely correct. The 1908 earthquake was absolutely devastating. First of all, it killed between 70 to 85,000 people, not to mention the tsunamis that it created. So there is that risk. Now, in fairness, there's bridges in Japan that are completely adept to dealing with the seismic activity. So the engineers themselves on this project are fairly confident that that's not going to be an issue.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's 1 o'clock on Saturday, the 23rd of August. This is the weekend on GB News, and happy bank holiday weekend to all of you watching. Well, a fresh wave of protest is expected this weekend outside asylum hotels. That's as the Home Office moves to appeal after being blocked from intervening in the Epping High Court case.
We're here in Liverpool. Tensions are very high. Police right along, keeping both sides apart. Excuse the language, but it is a protest, and we'll have more during the rest of the programme.
Been Keir Starmer's political prisoner?
Absolutely. And me and several other people. Like I said, it's important to remember that it wasn't just me.
Bombshell words yesterday from Lucy Connelly as she breaks her silence, accusing the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, of making her a political prisoner in her first interview since release. And Chancellor Rachel Reeves accused of plotting a stealth tax raid with freezes on income tax thresholds and higher gambling levies on the table in her autumn budget. And Ghislaine Maxwell has denied ever witnessing any inappropriate behaviour by Donald Trump in newly released transcripts from the US Justice Department. I wonder what you make about that. And Nigel Farage has unveiled his mass deportation blueprint, pledging 5 flights a day to remove small boat migrants and taking Britain out of key international agreements. And as the Met Police make over 100 arrests before Notting Hill Carnival even begins, should the event just be cancelled? And Lionel Menendez denied parole just a day after his brother Eric. The infamous Menendez brothers remain behind bars more than 3 decades after the brutal killings that shocked America. Well, what a show we've got coming up for you. I'm Alex Armstrong, and this is The Weekend. Well, I love reading out your says. Very quick one here. John says, the carnival should have been stopped years ago. Well past its sell-by date, a haven for crime and criminals and always trouble, not to mention the cost to the taxpayers policing it. I totally agree with you, actually, John. But let's find out more when we get up to that segment and get your views in for your say. gbnews.com/your say. But before we get stuck into that, here's your latest news headlines with Bethany Elsie.
Alex, thank you. Good afternoon. Here's your top stories from the GB newsroom at 1:02. Nigel Farage has vowed that if he becomes Prime Minister, 5 deportation flights would leave the UK every day under plans to tackle illegal immigration. In an interview with The Times, the Reform UK leader says Britain is facing what he calls a massive crisis, and the only way forward is to detain and deport all migrants who arrive illegally. His plans would take Britain out of the European Convention of Human Rights and opt out of the UN Convention Against Torture and other international agreements. Protesters and counter-protesters are gathering outside hotels housing asylum seekers across the UK. Demonstrations are being held in major towns and cities in England, including Bristol, Liverpool, Newcastle and central London, as well as protests in Scotland and Wales. Protesters with the group Stand Up to Racism are also out in force. Lucy Connelly has accused Sir Keir Starmer of holding her as a political prisoner and says she's considering legal action against the police. The 42-year-old was jailed for stirring up racial hatred against asylum seekers online after the Southport murders last year. The former childminder and wife of a Conservative councillor was released from HMP Peterborough on Thursday. Miss Connelly will meet officials from Donald Trump's administration later today to discuss concerns around freedom of speech in Britain. Ghislaine Maxwell has told US officials she never saw President Donald Trump act inappropriately. In an interview with the US Justice Department in July, the convicted sex trafficker said President Trump was, quote, always very cordial and very kind. Miss Maxwell, who is serving a 20-year prison sentence for helping Jeffrey Epstein sexually abuse underage girls, also denied any knowledge of a client list. She added that she does not believe Epstein died by suicide. The interview transcript was released as pressure is mounting on the Justice Department to disclose more information about its Epstein probe. At least 5 people have been killed and many others injured after a tour bus crashed and rolled over on a major road in upstate New York. The bus was returning to New York City from Niagara Falls with 54 passengers on board when the driver lost control. Several people were thrown from the bus as the windows shattered, while some became trapped in the wreckage. Lyle Menendez, the older of the Notorious brothers, who was jailed for murdering their parents in Los Angeles in 1989, has been denied parole. It comes a day after his brother Eric Menendez received the same ruling. The pair, now aged 57 and 54, were given life sentences without the chance of parole 30 years ago after killing their parents with a shotgun at their Beverly Hills home. But both appealed for release after a judge reduced their sentences earlier this year. They claim they acted in self-defence. And if you're headed on a trip this bank holiday weekend, be warned, there'll be long delays on the roads and disruption on train services. The RAC is urging drivers to set off as early as possible or be prepared to sit longer in traffic. Members of the RMT union who work at the train operator cross-country are walking out today and Monday, affecting services throughout the long weekend. And Network Rail have said some major routes will be closed for engineering work. You're up to date. I'll have more for you in half an hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Welcome back. Well, that news on the Diana story there, that Harry and Meghan might be having a documentary about Diana's life, has got you all very animated on your say. Roadrunner says, I think Diana would think Harry's very sensible. Judith has responded saying, if Diana was still around, he'd be a different person and wouldn't have married that awful woman. And Roadrunners then accused Judith of being jealous. Well, I'll tell you what, I think you might be right there, Judith. I don't think Harry would be the same man if his mother was still alive today. And she did not like all this media attention. If anything, she was at the end of her life trying to get away from it. That's what finished her off, in my opinion. She was all that unwanted attention. She was chased everywhere. Anyway, we'll get stuck back into that, I'm sure, as that develops. But thank you very much for getting your thoughts in. Let's get stuck into today's topics. Arrests have been made as protests outside hotels housing migrants are taking place across the country this weekend. Counter-protesters are also gathering outside such hotels, including demonstrations from the group Stand Up to Racism. The latest round of protests come as the Home Office will seek to appeal against the High Court's refusal to allow it to intervene in the case of an asylum hotel in Epping. Well, joining me now is GB News reporter Doogie Beattie. Doogie, what's the scenes like where you are? I believe you're in Liverpool.
We are indeed, and the anti-immigration protest is just getting underway. 1 o'clock, there's an arrest just happening behind us here. The police have been very, very hard on this. They've clamped down all morning. You see that gentleman being taken away there. At first, the pro-immigration protest was the bigger protest, and that was at 12 o'clock. Now numbers are really starting to swell here on the anti-immigration side. We have seen Merseyside police come in with horses and try and push people back off the road onto the pavement and stuff. The police themselves at this point are getting quite agitated as to what's going on. There's been about 3 or 4 arrests already. And yes, one side is heavily represented by the unions, Unison, Unite, the General Workers Union are all in there, and that is the pro-immigration side of things. On this side, it is just starting to get edgy. I mean, we were in there a few moments ago. We'll actually see if we can come back in again through these police lines and see if they actually let us in. Excuse me, sir. Thank you. Watch yourselves. Thank you. And you can see now that much more are arriving here, and this rally is starting to really get underway. They are saying that they are going to try and walk through Liverpool to the women's hospital there. Whether that actually happens or not, or the police will try and stop that, we have no idea. But really now, this side is starting to outnumber the pro-immigration side. It is getting very rowdy, and we are watching ourselves in here at this moment in time. But we'll keep you posted within the next few minutes as to what's going on.
Thank you so much, Doogie. Yeah, please do keep us posted there. There's a lot of people there, and of course, this is a scene that people are going to see up and down the country. Doogie, are you seeing many local people there? Are we seeing the usual bust-in crowd show up as well?
Well, I must be fair to the pro-immigration side. I think the majority of them are actually Liverpoolians, but there is quite a number of them that are obviously not. Their accents aren't from this area. Whereas this side here, the anti-immigration side, I would say is 99.9% Liverpoolians, and that's what I was saying this morning. It'd be interesting to see, with so many protests happening up and down the countryside, will those numbers shrink, or will they stay at that sort of high end that they've been in around Epping, etc. That will be something to see. But at this moment in time, definitely the anti-immigration side here are definitely, the numbers are swelling and swelling. Police are starting to look very nervous here. They've moved the line across the top end of the square and trying to basically herd them all down into one area without herding them into the other protesters at the other side.
Doogie, thank you so much for reporting that live. We'll see you again very shortly. Keep us posted on the latest coming from Liverpool there, Doogie. Thank you. Well, moving on, Rachel Reeves is preparing a stealth tax hike on workers in the upcoming budget. Treasury insiders say she's considering extending a 6-year freeze on income tax thresholds to tackle a growing financial shortfall. Well, joining me now is Chief Economic Advisor at the Centre for Economic and Business Research, Vicky Price. Vicky, more bad news for taxpayers, it seems. This government, of course, pledged not to raise taxes on what they would dub working people. I'm not sure what working people is loosely defined these days. But this seems like the Chancellor's got no other option.
Yes, I'm afraid it looks like it, and it's been talked about so much that it's almost now inevitable. I think the markets have almost discounted that this is going to happen anyway. And the reason for that, as you rightly say, is that she needs some extra money. Rachel Reeves needs to plug a bit of a hole because otherwise she's not going to meet her fiscal rules, and I think that's quite important. So if she were to extend that freeze, which has been going on, of course, since 2021, and then extended and extended, if she's going to extend it again for another 2 years to the end of this Parliament, she'd be raising maybe just over 7 billion a year extra. So that's going to be obviously quite helpful, but I'm afraid it does mean that many more people are going to be pulled into paying the tax for the first time, any tax for the first time, and many more are going to be paying the higher rate taxes as well.
Vicky, what sort of, what are we anticipating here with some of these stealth taxes? Do we have any ideas as to how far the Chancellor's willing to go? I mean, there's many on the left now calling for things like 100% inheritance tax on people. At what point do we say enough is enough? Because, you know, this black hole is what I think estimated to be around at least 50 billion now. The country's looking at a pretty dire economic situation as it is. Can the public endure more tax rises?
Well, they're going to have to. I mean, there have been lots of talks also about looking again, possibly at even VAT, even though there's been a pledge not to do anything about it, although the government will be very careful about this because, of course, it would raise inflation. But there are loads of tax loopholes they're going to be going for. And, of course, on the pension side, we've already seen a bit of a raid happening, particularly in relation to inheritance tax. Some of the pension pots are no longer going to be eligible for inheritance tax exemptions, so lots of people are reorganizing their finances accordingly. And indeed, you're right, there's also been a bit of discussion, not necessarily from the government, about raising the rate of inheritance tax, which will be very, very unpopular. But I think what we've got to bear in mind is that the most important area of raising taxes is income tax. And even, interestingly enough, what we've seen so far, and we expect to see in terms of freezing of allowances by 2027, 28, unless it gets, of course, extended, would mean that it is equivalent to raising taxes by 4p the pound. So that's actually quite substantial already, and it's in fact bringing the threshold in real terms back to where it was in 2013, 2014. But I'm afraid income taxes are the way to raise taxes for the government because they represent the highest percentage of all the revenues that are collected. For the moment, the government raises something like 330 billion a year on income tax. You have to add, of course, national insurance contributions. So what you can do, all sorts of other things in all sorts of other areas, but I'm afraid they're going to pale into insignificance if you compare it with what you can do on the income tax front.
And Vicky, what other options would a government, not necessarily saying this government for ideological reasons, but what other options would a government be able to take in these circumstances? Because people will be wondering, well, if this is what I have to choose from, what are the better options perhaps here that don't hit taxpayers so hard?
There isn't very much that you can do except, of course, invest in ISAs, which mean that your interest there doesn't get any tax. A few areas still available where there isn't any tax applied to it, but I'm afraid the options aren't very great. And of course, if anything, we might even see more taxes on capital gains coming as well. But a lot will depend on what happens with interest rates. If they carry on going down, then the cost the government of servicing the debt will be less, so they may not be so inclined to raise taxes than would otherwise be the case. And also, if perchance there is an improvement in the forecast by the Office for Budget Responsibility and they expect suddenly higher growth. If that is the case, again, there will be more revenues coming in. But frankly, with this geopolitical environment, tariffs and everything else, that seems unlikely.
Vicky, just one more question for you here. We've seen the government push out some, at least I'd say a few ideas that are perhaps being floated to the press or leaked potentially. One of them we spoke about recently was this housing tax that might come in, where if you own a property, you might get taxed per year for whatever the price is over £500,000. Are the government trying to push out policies to see how the public responds to them at this point in time? Is that where we're at before the budget?
Yes, they do that quite a lot. So who knows, some of the things that we've been talking about just now may simply have been teasers just to see how the population responds. But there is no doubt that there has to be a rethink of whether the inheritance tax is particularly good news, generally from an economic viewpoint. Stamp duty, which is being looked at again as possibly abolishing that. What do you replace all that with? Yes, maybe a rethought council tax would be the answer, and that is really linking to what you just said, which is basically maybe an annual tax, which is fairer and reflects more the value of the house you're living in.
Oh, Vicky Price, Chief Economic Advisor at the Centre for Economic and Business Research there. Thank you so much for joining me. Oh, more misery for taxpayers. It seems, it almost does seem at this point unavoidable that you're going to end up paying more taxes one way or another. With inflation running wild and your income going up, the government's just going to scrape more and more on that if they keep freezing those thresholds on your income tax. Just despairing, isn't it, a little bit? But anyway, some good news for you, because the economic situation is so dire. The Great British Giveaway can now help you live mortgage or rent-free for a year and £5,000 extra in cash. Or you can also get yourself £15,000 tax-free cash lump sum if you don't own a property or don't pay rent. Make sure you don't miss out. Here's all the details you need.
It's the final week to see how you can win your mortgage or rent paid for a whole year. That's a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, right up to a whopping £20,000. Plus, we'll add an extra £5,000 on top for good measure. And if you don't have a mortgage or rent to pay, lucky you, we'll give you £15,000 tax-free cash instead. Hurry, lines close this Friday. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck, everybody. Before I go, Humpty says, Alex, please say hello to everyone in Cornwall. It's sunny, blue skies and everything that's going on in the world. At the moment, we need something that's cheery. Well, hello, everybody watching from Cornwall. Well, you're with me. Stay tuned, of those of you in Cornwall, because we've got lots more coming up on the show. Ghislaine Maxwell has denied ever witnessing any inappropriate behaviour by US President Donald Trump. In newly released transcripts from the United States Justice Department, we have all the details. All of that and more to come. You're with Britain's News Channel.
This is our country, and we think it's amazing. From high tea to the high street, we love it all. Even the rain, we like that too. There's nowhere else we'd rather be. That's why we're here to be the fearless champion of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we are GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record. You say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Weekend with me, Alex Armstrong. Let's read out some of your comments, shall we? Because I love hearing from you all. Nick Potts says, I despair at the political logic. We're talking about the potential stealth tax rises here. Working people need to pay more taxes to pay for people who aren't British, whether illegal migrants, foreign aid, international net zero projects. Just close the borders, stop paying for illegal migrants, scrap net zero, stop all foreign aid until we're out of the mess. You're right. We need to prioritise British people first. This is why Donald Trump has done so well in America, because he said, and he's run on a platform of America first. And he's to be fair to the man, he's doing what he said. And whether you like it or not, whether people could disagree with Trump's tactics, he is doing what he said he would do. And I have to say, it's refreshing to see politicians actually deliver their manifesto pledges, isn't it? Because I think we've gone decades in this country without politicians actually doing what they promised they do. I always go back to the Tory manifestos over the last decade that promised us they would reduce net migration to the tens of thousands. Well, of course, we saw the Boris wave, didn't we? When he came into office, despite taking back control, we actually lost more of it, which is completely bonkers to me. I just cannot grasp that. On the topic there, Paul Day says, when we were talking about Nigel Farage's plan to deport illegal migrants, Paul says Nigel doesn't have to do much to win the next election, but he has a lot to fix when he does. That is a big points there because, of course, this is a new party. They haven't had politicians in Parliament before. They don't have any lords yet. But I think if you can build a good team around you, the public will back you. So let's see what happens there. A long way to go still. Anyway, the jailed ex-girlfriend of convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, has defended the United States president. Maxwell told the United States Justice Department that she never saw President Trump in an inappropriate setting, and he was never inappropriate with anybody. Well, she also alleged that it was Sarah Ferguson, Royal Sarah Ferguson, who introduced Prince Andrew to Jeffrey Epstein. Well, joining me now to talk about this bombshell story is Editor-in-Chief of Majesty magazine, Ingrid Stewart. Thank you, Ingrid. Thank you so much for joining me. This is quite a bombshell statement here. Setting aside the Trump stuff for just a second, because I would like to focus on the Sarah Ferguson element of this, which I think our audience would be far more interested in. Ghislaine Maxwell there saying that it was Sarah Ferguson who actually introduced Prince Andrew to Epstein.
Yes, well, I believe it was. And I've always said that was the case because I remember reading this ages and ages ago that she had met Epstein either in the Bahamas or Barbados. And I think Sarah was on holiday with her children. And she came across Epstein and then she put Andrew and Epstein together. Obviously, Sarah's always, been as has Andrew. They've always liked what Prince Philip used to call seedy billionaires. And there's nothing wrong with Sarah doing that. Absolutely not. And I read it years ago, and I always thought, oh yes, it was her. It wasn't Ghislaine Maxwell. But then Andrew said, I believe he said in his Newsnight interview that it was Ghislaine that introduced them. So, but I absolutely think that there's no reason for Ghislaine Maxwell to lie at this stage of her prison sentence. She is trying everything she can to get her sentence reduced. So why would she tell a lie about that?
No, I think you're absolutely right, Ingrid. It does seem that she has no reason to lie at this point in time, for sure. But does this say something about the company that some of our royals may have kept in the past? And does it say something about that extended royal family? I think there's many great royals, by the way. I'm not slamming the royal family. I love the royal family. But does it say something, perhaps, about some of the company that Prince Andrew kept and perhaps even what the company that Sarah Ferguson kept?
Well, I think members of the royal family have traditionally always been absolutely fascinated by people that have made a great deal of money. If you go back in history, that seems to be always the case. And I don't think that, I mean, even our wonderful late Queen was fascinated by Americans and how they made so much money. So I think people that have a great deal of money are fascinated by the royals, and the royals are fascinated by people that have a great deal of money. And if you look back at all the stories over the past years, you can see that many of them have actually been quite friendly with some very dubious characters.
Yes, Ingrid, as well, I think many people will be wondering if we're expecting to hear from Sarah Ferguson on this, because, of course, this will now lead to a lot of speculation, in my opinion, Ingrid. This is the thing that many royals try to steer away from. Do we expect to hear a response from Sarah Ferguson on this?
Well, I believe that listening to the news at 1 o'clock is that she has made no comment, and quite rightly so. There's absolutely no point in her adding fuel to this fire. And so she said no comment. So there we are. But I mean, it's not unusual for members of the royal family to mistakenly hang out with people who have dubious reputations, as we only have to look through, the past few years to see that.
Yes, and of course, Maxwell has now cleared Donald Trump, so to speak, in her own words. So let's put it that way. Do we expect again to hear more from her on Prince Andrew, perhaps? Now she's speaking out, and she's got a lot to say. Clearly, it looks like she might be going for a presidential pardon. That will raise questions about whether what she's saying about Trump is potentially true. I think many people will speculate on that. But do we expect now to hear more from her on the Prince Andrew situation? Because that has been one of the bigger parts of this whole Epstein saga.
Well, she's always remained loyal to Prince Andrew, and there's absolutely no reason for her not to continue to do so. She's always said that, well, no, we haven't really heard from her before, because in court she never defended herself. We know for sure that she was an enabler for Epstein. We know that. There's been testimonies from far too many women not to believe that. But whether or not Andrew was involved, I don't think she's ever going to say that he was, but she might never say that he wasn't. So she's treading very, very carefully, and she's being extremely nice about President Trump, because obviously, she wants a presidential pardon, or at least to have her jail term, shortened, because she's been in a very heavily guarded jail prison, for a long time now, and she's just, somewhere a little bit more palatable at the moment, and she's not gonna do anything that is going to jeopardize her future release.
I completely agree with you there, Ingrid. Thank you so much for joining me, Editor-in-Chief of Majesty Magazine there, Ingrid Stewart. Thank you so much. Really interesting story, that one, isn't it? I think it's fascinating to see now what Ghislaine Maxwell might actually say, who she might indict as part of this whole saga. We don't know. I suspect more to come, particularly if she becomes a free woman. Anyway, well, GB News has contacted a representative for Sarah Ferguson for comments to this story, but we are still awaiting a response. We will, of course, bring that to you when we receive it. Right, well, you're with me, Alex Armstrong, on GB News here. Lots more coming up on the show today. I'll read out some more of your statements. There's lots of you asking, where is the Prime Minister? Well, we also know the Home Secretary is interrailing across Europe at the moment, while there seems to be a summer of discontent happening in Britain. So I think many of you are wondering, where is our leadership in this country? But we'll get to some of those shortly. But first, here's your news headlines with Bethany Elsie.
The headlines from the GB newsroom. 3 people are in a life-threatening condition after a suspected arson attack at a restaurant in East London. Police and firefighters are investigating. Protesters and counter-protesters are gathering outside hotels housing migrants in towns and cities across the UK. Nigel Farage has vowed that if he becomes Prime Minister, 5 deportation flights carrying illegal migrants would leave the UK every day. Lucy Connelly, who was jailed for inciting racial hatred after the Southport murders, has accused Sir Keir Starmer of holding her as a political prisoner and says she's considering legal action against the police. Convicted sex trafficker and associate of Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, has told US officials that she never saw President Donald Trump act inappropriately. Those are the headlines for now. More news in half an hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB Digital Radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Thank you, Bethany. Well, remember, I want to know what you think on all of these big stories we're discussing today. Please visit gbnews.com/your say and join in the conversation. Lots more coming up on today's show, of course. That's as the Met Police make over 100 arrests before Notting Hill Carnival even gets underway. Should the event just be cancelled? All of that and more to come. I'm Alex Armstrong and you're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. It's a bank holiday weekend for many parts of the UK. Initially quite cloudy, particularly through today, but there will be some sunny spells in places. You can see that high pressure over the UK at the moment. It should hold on for the next few days before then low pressure starts moving in from the Atlantic to give a bit more of an unsettled flavour as we go through next week. But lots of cloud around through this afternoon. There'll be some bright or sunny spells, best of the sunshine most likely across southwestern parts of England and perhaps northeast Scotland as well. But overall, a lot of cloud around, could be some light rain and drizzle across parts of Northern Ireland, Western Scotland, Northern England too. Temperatures here, the high teens to low 20s, perhaps up to 23 or 24 across southwest England in the best of the sunny spells. Into this evening time, some glimmers of sunshine across northeast Scotland here, temperatures 15 to 17 Celsius. A weak weather front giving some patchy light rain across western parts, which also is more evident across Northern Ireland here. 1 or 2 heavier showers possible too. The cloud thick enough for some drizzle over the high ground of Northern England into Wales as well. Otherwise, a lot of cloud to end the day. There'll be some bright or sunny spells that push through from time to time ahead of dusk. And then as we go through the evening and overnight, it should be largely dry. There will be variable amounts of cloud. Cloud thick enough for some light rain and drizzle across Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland once more, perhaps down the east coast of England too. There could be some mist and fog patches forming with light winds and generally with more cloud around. Temperatures higher than recent nights, so double figures for all. And a mixed start to Sunday morning. Some outbreaks of rain across western Scotland to start the day. Elsewhere, some bright or sunny spells. And I'm hopeful as we go through the day, there should be more in the way of sunshine across most parts. But the cloud will bubble up as we move through into the afternoon, so the sunshine will come and go. But it should just generally feel warmer for everyone, and temperatures a little higher too, reaching the mid-20s a little more widely. See you again later.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the weekend with me, Alex Armstrong. Well, Notting Hill Carnival kicks off tomorrow, but Mayor Sadiq Khan has warned of a possible mass casualty incident, even as he refuses to intervene. Already more than 100 arrests have been made and dozens of weapons seized ahead of the weekend's events. The Met says the operation is designed to deter those posing the greatest risk to public safety. So we're asking, should Notting Hill Carnival be shut down? Well, joining me now is political commentator Matthew Stadlin. Matthew, thank you so much for joining me. And I think it's important to note that you actually live in Notting Hill, don't you?
Not just that, and by the way, I've turned up not in a suit as I would usually do, not out of disrespect for the viewers, but because you can't really talk about the carnival in a three-piece suit.
And it is a nice day out as well, isn't it? I think we'll say it's a nice weekend here in London.
Off to the sport later, but actually I posted on X 2 or 3 days ago saying, just a quick heads up, we're about to hear the usual calls from the usual people calling for the carnival to be banned. And here we are.
Yeah, well, you're on it.
By magic.
As if by magic.
But I'm going to defend the carnival. So I'm 45 years old. I've lived in the carnival area all of my life, in the heart of Notting Hill. It's a great place to live. It's got some issues, but it's a fantastic place to live. The carnival is part of it. It's something I've been deeply proud of all my life, that the biggest street festival in Europe, one of the biggest street festivals on the planet, is in my neighbourhood. I love that. I first went when I was 2 years old on my dad's shoulders. I have taken my 1-year-old. I've taken my mother-in-law, who'd never seen anything like it. She comes from the south coast.
I bet she'd be shocked, yeah.
She loved it. I mean, there are times. So I wouldn't recommend plunging in, if you've never been before, plunging into the middle of the Monday.
Yeah.
And, of course, there are risks. We know that. I'm not naive to that. And where you get 1 or 2 million people, you will get crime. And I absolutely condemn any of that. It's horrific. But it is something that we can be proud of. It's a really important cultural tradition of the Afro-Caribbean communities and the Indo-Caribbean communities. It is almost 60 years old. And there have been calls since 1976, when it was just a decade old, for it to be shut down.
Yeah, and of course, we all talk about the impacts on local residents and businesses because, everyone sees every year the famous boards go up, don't they? I've
been seeing them today, yesterday. Yeah.
I'm sure. Would you sympathise with some people in the area who go, actually, this is just not something that I look forward to every year. I find it dangerous. A lot of families I know go away for the weekend. Many of them have said, like yourself, they like the carnival, but others are also saying, actually, this has got to stop now. We need to put it somewhere. More and more people going every year, millions of people. We need to put it somewhere manageable and safer, like Hyde Park, where we could have perhaps more police, better kettling in of the area at least, so we know how many people are there, stop the crime. What would you say to those?
There are lots of police. As I say, there have been these calls pretty much annually since the start. If you move in to the area, you know that the Notting Hill Carnival happens every year. I do have empathy for people for whom it is not their style, it's not their thing, and lots of these people then move out, they go and stay with friends or family, and they work that out. My wife and my kids are not always there for the carnival, but the idea that it should be shut down when it has become such an important part of British culture, because British culture involves other cultures as well. I mean, I don't know what his views are now, but when he was Prince Charles, the now king, was supportive of the carnival, and I think that's a fantastic thing. If you treat it in the right way, it is a fantastically fun thing to do. There's fantastic food, you can dance, you can mingle. Listen, I've never taken a recreational drug in my life.
Yep.
And I would say the same thing that I would say about Glastonbury, that I would say about the carnival. There is no place in our society, in my view, and in the view of the law, for illegal drugs. Not into that, shouldn't happen, I condemn it. But if you treat it in the right way, yes, there is always a chance when you get that many people that you might be extremely unlucky and be the victim of some form of violence. But basically, I think it's a fantastic thing.
Yeah, no, I definitely know there's sympathy for it to stay where it is. But is there not a case to make to move it to somewhere like Hyde Park? Maybe not shut it down, but...
It's a street carnival, Alex.
But what if you could, march them through Carnival and then get them off to Hyde Park and end it there?
I love going to Hyde Park and running and walking the dogs and all the rest of it. It's not a place for a carnival. It would no longer be a carnival.
OK.
I mean, you don't move football games to cricket pitches, do you? You don't move farmers' markets into sort of
OK,
malls.
Matthew, but I guess
And there are plenty of police, Alex. You said where there could be more police. I mean, I think for at least one of the carnivals, there are about 11,000 police. And the next thing that you might say is, well, why should the taxpayer be fitting the bill and all the rest of it?
Quite.
I've read figures of 90 million quid. This may be wrong. I've also heard figures of 30 million quid, but tens of millions of pounds being pumped into the local economy. This will not benefit all the local shops and restaurants because some of them board up, but there is a huge surge of money. I'd be very surprised, and the council aren't here to give their view, but if the council doesn't benefit as well, and that then has a knock-on positive effect, maybe helping the policing budget, I don't know.
Sure. I think we would be amiss if we didn't talk about the actual crimes, because this has been a consistent theme of the carnival. And I know we compare that with something like Glastonbury, where there isn't murders, and we had, I think, was it 8 murders last year?
Two deaths, I think.
2 deaths. Sorry, I beg your pardon.
I think there have been 8
deaths.
killings since the start of the... which is obviously 8 killings too many.
My producer's correct, was 8 stabbings, I beg your pardon. You're absolutely right. And, of course, over 300 police officers assaulted. Many people will just say, sympathise with it, that you want to keep it in Notting Hill because that's what it's all about. But actually, if we did move it to somewhere like Hyde Park, at least then we could manage the crime levels that are very, very high. And actually, we shouldn't tolerate the constant year-on-year abuse of our police officers.
Look, ultimately, and I realise this is a bit of an extension, but if you don't want stabbings, just lock up all us men, and you get very many fewer stabbings. It's a question of balance, isn't it? And people who go to the carnival are aware that there are risks. And if you are a member of a gang, then you are obviously at a heightened risk.
But Matthew, people will say locking up all men isn't reasonable. We can't lock up every man in the country, or in London at least.
And of course I wouldn't.
We haven't got enough spaces for the criminals as it is.
Of course I wouldn't suggest it. What I'm trying to convey is that if you have 2 million people, there's going to be crime. And you would say, well, don't put 2 million people there. But
I would,
8 or 9 or 10 million people live with each other throughout the year in London, and there are crimes, a lot of crimes. Doesn't mean you shut down London. I've said at the outset, I realise this is a bit of an extension. What I'm trying to convey is that should we really be shutting things down in order to take away all risk? And my view is not. As I say, absolutely condemn the violence. There are negative elements to being someone like myself who owns a home in the area, who participates and enjoys it. I have to padlock my gate so people don't come and wee on our front yard, right? That's happened before. It's a bit grim. I can get over it. It's a bit grim. But life is about a bit of give and take. Condemn the violence, celebrate the tradition, celebrate the culture, and have a good time.
What about policing the events? Let's just go. We're not going to. Let's say we're not going to shut it down. We're going to get the police in. Every year we see police dancing with people.
Brilliant.
Of course. See, I can see, Matthew. This is why I disagree with you, because I think it does give the impression the police are there to enjoy themselves, not police the event. And I think policing has become too soft in the country. This is my personal opinion, and therefore you do see a rise in things like assaults on police officers because people don't fear them, and they should fear the police in many circumstances.
I'm not sure about the word fear. They should respect the police.
Sure.
Of course they should. And I am all for firm policing within the law. I would think there are all sorts of crimes that could be better clamped down on in London and beyond. Trust me, as a citizen, as a dad, as a husband, I am no fan of crime. But the question of how the police approach an event like this is really interesting. And in the past, there were serious problems. In the mid-70s, there were fights between young black men and the police, and it was a desperate situation. Since then, the police have stepped back and used a softer touch. And when you see a police officer twerking with a reveller, with a carnivaler, I think that's a good thing because it builds trust between the police and communities. Of course, if the police see a crime, they need to clamp down on it. Just the other day, coming back from local football, where I play on Thursday evenings, and I bumped into a patrol car and I said, please make sure you look out for the people who are spraying graffiti, because we do not want that in our area. It's a blight and it's a really nasty crime. And he said, actually, we've got another patrol car looking at exactly that. So, of course, the law has to be enforced, but that doesn't mean that the operational tactics all have to be as you suggest they should be.
Yeah, no, listen, I just think when we see the footage of those police officers doing things like twerking with revellers, which I think is, many people will say is a good thing, I think it is what leads to that rise in crime. That's my personal opinion. But
it's a very event-specific thing.
Fair enough. Matthew Stanton, thank you very much for joining me. Really appreciate your thoughts on this one. OK, well, if you're in search of some holiday sun, maybe you are getting away from Notting Hill Carnival, perhaps. Here's the forecast for some of your top European destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
It's a bit of a mixed bag across Europe as we go through the next few days. There is some rain pushing into parts of Portugal, also affecting southwestern Spain as we go into tomorrow, but most of Spain actually having a largely fine day. A few showery outbreaks affecting parts of Italy, Greece and maybe Turkey too, but these won't be as heavy nor as thundery as we've seen recently. And then through into next week, whilst most places will stay largely fine, across some areas, France, Germany for example, the risk of some heavy thundery downpour.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Lock up all the men, there we go. You're with me, Alex Armstrong on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show. Lyle Menendez denied parole just a day after his brother, Eric. The infamous Menendez brothers remain behind bars more than 3 decades after the brutal killings that shocked America. All of that, more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
I remember being introduced to Ken Bates.
Chelsea
who owned Chelsea, and just asked to sit down with him and then spend the next sort of 2 or 3 hours with him having lunch. And an ex of Donald Trump, Ivana Trump, his wife, and
Oh, you had dinner with her?
Yeah, I remember having dinner actually with Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Did you?
Yeah.
You said earlier you couldn't think
You couldn't think of anyone else listing them.
I can't think of anyone. That literally just came into my head.
Hi, Catherine Zeta-Jones. Can we go back to that, please?
Catherine Zeta-Jones was. I used to live in a flat in Fulham, and I'm up at the top of the flat, and I was a sports reporter at the BBC, and I went round to Pizza Express, and I'm sitting eating, having my dough balls and everything else I was having. And reading the back pages of the papers in preparation for the work that I was doing the next day. Yeah. And I walked out of the cafe, and the beautiful, most stunning woman, Catherine Zeta-Jones, was walking by, and she said, "Oh, hello, Eamon." And then Welsh accent.
Really?
Hello, Eamon. How are you? And we were standing talking, and we were nattering away, and she said, "Anyway, why are we standing talking in the street? Have you eaten?"
And I went, said no.
No, I didn't say no. I went, no. And I went inside, and I remember Pizza Express was empty. And the waiter saw me again, and I went and sat down with Catherine, and he said, "And you, sir, are you eating?" And I went, "Yes." He said, "What do you have?" And I said, "Could I have the dough balls?" And I've never been able to eat dough balls again since.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I love your stays coming in. Some of you are keeping me very entertained during the breaks here. Someone says, Alex, I totally agree with you. Bring the people up to the policing standards, not the police down to the people standards. I think that's absolutely right. I do feel there's a whole generation now, particularly of young people, that don't respect the police, don't have any fear for them. And I think that you should have a healthy fear of the police and at least have respect for them. But that seems to have gone. And maybe, I don't know how we get it back. We just need to be a bit tougher, don't we? Anyway, moving on. The Menendez brothers again. Eric and Lyle Menendez have been denied parole nearly 40 years after killing their parents. It was their first real shot at freedom in decades, but despite family support and Eric's claims of rehabilitation, California parole commissioners denied them both parole. Well, joining me now is celebrity lawyer Vanessa Lloyd-Platt. Vanessa, thank you so much for joining me to talk about this breaking story. Of course, I think most people will know these two now from the famous Netflix show that portrayed the two brothers, now denied a chance of parole. What's the feeling like across America on this stuff? Do people think this is a good decision, or have they become sort of idolised thanks to that TV show?
Well, there's a lot of people very shocked, including the Menendez family, who are fuming that this decision has been made, particularly as their hopes were raised in March of this year, when a judge decided to reduce the sentence from life imprisonment without parole to 50 years, which meant that they were immediately eligible for parole. So if a judge felt that that was the position, why now have the parole board been so absolute in refusing to both of the brothers? And the excuse given by the parole board was that they still represent a risk to the public. Now, there's a lot of concern about that, because there's a lot of people saying after 35 years and all of the positive things that they did whilst in prison, including one of them getting a degree, mentoring some of the prisoners that had suffered from sexual abuse, that it was wrong that they were refused this. And at the moment, there's calls for the president to look at potential clemency for the two brothers, or alternatively, the governor of California, who is Gavin Newsom, to step up to the mark and help.
I mean, you know, I think, Vanessa, there's a difficult discussion to be had here on rehabilitation, isn't there? Because many people will say, look, they committed a horrific murder against their own parents, and therefore, I mean, any murder you shouldn't be... Many people will say any murder you shouldn't be released, and in some parts of the United States, this was a capital punishment. You know, you would receive the death penalty for this. So is it perhaps the public feel, or maybe members of the public feel, that actually because they've become this sort of celebrity status for what they did, that they should be released? Is that what we're looking at here?
I think we're partially looking at that, but also 36 years of serving a sentence, people feel is punishment enough. The reasons given also by the parole board was because they both had illicit telephones in the cells whilst they were serving their sentence. It illustrated that actually they weren't taking matters seriously enough about discipline, even behind bars in a secluded position. So this was one of the main reasons relied on by the parole board, but people feel that they were just making excuses. The family, who feel so passionate about this, are saying it's serving you a purpose by having those brothers still in prison, because you get paid an enormous amount of money at the correctional centre to keep them there, particularly given their celebrity status. And the stepdaughter is suggesting that she will expose the corruption in the state system if they don't parole them soon.
Well, Vanessa Lloyd-Platt, celebrity lawyer there, thank you so much for joining me. That's very interesting. We'll stay tuned. I'd love to have you back to tell us more about that when that story breaks even further. Thank you for joining me, Vanessa. Well, you're with me, Alex Armstrong, on GB News. Loads more coming up on the show. Don't go anywhere. We're Lucy Connelly set to meet Trump officials today. Should America be weighing in on Britain's free speech matters? But first, let's look at your weather forecast.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office, and we will see a little bit of rain across the northwest over the next 24 hours, but largely dry elsewhere as we continue through the weekend. High pressure dominating the weather pattern at the moment. I'm hopeful for Sunday there will be a bit more sunshine around than what we've seen through the weekend so far. Lots of cloud out there, some outbreaks of light and patchy rain over the hills of northern England, a few showers for Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland seeing some outbreaks outbreaks of light rain too. As we head overnight, the clouds should break up a little bit more, but we see some mist and fog patches developing across England and Wales. And with a bit more cloud around for everyone, temperatures will be a little higher than they have been of late, generally starting the day on Sunday in double figures. But a mixed picture, sunny spells across much of England and Wales, a dry start across eastern parts of Scotland with some morning sunshine, but a different story in the west, cloudy here, some outbreaks of rain, some low cloud around the coast, this extending into Northern Ireland too, the risk of some patchy rain in places. But across England and Wales it's generally dry. The cloud could be thick enough at first for a few spots of light rain and drizzle down the east coast, but plenty of sunshine to start the day with any mist and fog patches slowly clearing. And then the day ahead is a brighter day for many. There should be sunny spells. I think as the day goes on the cloud will bubble up across England and Wales, limiting the sunshine at times, and there is the risk of that rain still across western Scotland, just slowly pushing a little further north and eastwards. But temperatures overall should be a little higher on Sunday compared to today, 24, 25 a little more widely, so just feeling warmer out there compared to today. And into the evening time the cloud tends to fade away again, so some sunshine ahead of dusk and most places ending the day dry. Another warm day on Monday, temperatures even higher, could reach 27, 28 Celsius before it turns cooler and more unsettled as we head through the week.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could win your mortgage or rent paid for a whole year. That's a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, right up to a whopping £20,000. Plus, we'll add an extra £5,000 on top for good measure. Make sure you don't miss out as lines close on the 29th of August. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record, you say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
Because you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. It's 2 o'clock on Saturday, the 23rd of August. This is the weekend on GB News. While a fresh wave of protests are taking place outside asylum hotels, with arrests made as the Home Office moves to appeal after being blocked from intervening in the Epping High Court case.
There is real pressure on the police here now. They lost control between the two factions here about 40 minutes ago, and you can see the result of it. They have got themselves caught in behind protesters and anti-protesters. The middle of Liverpool is now blocked, and the police are going to have to do something within the next few minutes. We'll have more.
Yeah, well,
Keir Starmer's political prisoner?
Absolutely. And me and several other people. Like I said, it's important to remember that it wasn't just me.
Bombshell interviewer Lucy Connelly breaks her silence, accusing Sir Keir Starmer of making her a political prisoner in her first interview since her release. And Chancellor Rachel Reeves is accused of plotting a stealth tax raid, with freezes on income tax thresholds and higher gambling levies on the table in her next autumn budget. And Ghislaine Maxwell has denied ever witnessing any inappropriate behaviour by Donald Trump in a newly released transcript from the US Justice Department.
Can't stop us from singing Delilah, can he?
Well, legend Sir Tom Jones defies the ban by belting out his controversial song Delilah in Cardiff. But should the song be banned for good? Well, I'm Alex Armstrong, and this is The Weekend. Well, I've been reading out loads of your stays in the show today, so let me read some more of them out by you getting them in at gbnews.com/your say. But before we get stuck into those big topics, here's your latest news headlines with Bethany Elsie.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Your top stories from the GB newsroom at 2:02. Nigel Farage has vowed that if he becomes Prime Minister, 5 deportation flights would leave the UK every day under plans to tackle illegal immigration. In an interview with The Times, the Reform UK leader says Britain is facing what he calls a massive crisis, and the only way forward is to detain and deport all migrants who arrive illegally. His plans would take Britain out of the European Convention on Human Rights and opt out of the UN Convention Against Torture, as well as other international agreements. Tensions are rising as hundreds of protesters and counter-protesters are gathering outside hotels housing asylum seekers across the UK. Demonstrations are being held in major towns and cities in England, including Bristol, Liverpool, Newcastle and central London. Protesters with the group Stand Up to Racism are also out in force. Police have had to break up clashes between the two sides. Lucy Connelly has accused Sir Keir Starmer of holding her as a political prisoner and says she's considering legal action against the police. The 42-year-old was jailed for stirring up racial hatred against asylum seekers online after the Southport murders last year. The former childminder and wife of a Conservative councillor was released from HMP Peterborough on Thursday. Miss Connelly will meet officials from Donald Trump's administration later today to discuss her concerns around freedom of speech in Britain. Ghislaine Maxwell has told US officials she never saw President Donald Trump act inappropriately. In an interview with the US Justice Department in July, the convicted sex trafficker said President Trump was, quote, always very cordial and very kind. Miss Maxwell, who is serving a 20-year prison sentence for helping Jeffrey Epstein sexually abuse underage girls, also denied any knowledge of a client list. She added that she does not believe Epstein died by suicide. 3 people are in a life-threatening condition after a suspected arson attack at a restaurant in East London. Crews rescued 5 people from the building on Woodford Avenue in Ilford late last night. 3 women and 2 men were treated for burns and smoke inhalation. All of them have been taken to hospital. The Met Police and London Fire Brigade are investigating, but no arrests have yet been made. At least 5 people have been killed and many others injured after a tour bus crashed and rolled over on a major road in upstate New York. The bus was returning to New York City from Niagara Falls with 54 passengers on board when the driver lost control. Several people were thrown from the bus as the windows shattered, while some became trapped in the wreckage. And Lyle Menendez, the older of the notorious brothers who were jailed for murdering their parents in Los Angeles in 1989, has been denied parole. It comes a day after his brother Eric Menendez received the same ruling. The pair, now aged 57 and 54, were given life sentences without the chance for parole 30 years ago after shooting their parents at their Beverly Hills home. But both appealed for release after a judge reduced their sentences earlier this year. They claim they acted in self-defence. You're up to date. I'll have more for you in half an hour.
Thank you, Bethany. Well, let's get stuck into today's topics, shall we? Protests outside hotels housing migrants are taking place across the country again this weekend. Counter-protesters are also gathering outside such hotels, including demonstrations from the infamous group Stand Up to Racism. The latest round of protests come as the Home Office will seek to appeal against the High Court's refusal to allow it to intervene in the case of an asylum hotel in Epping. Well, joining me now from the heart of the protest in Liverpool is GB News reporter Doogie Beattie. Doogie, tell us the latest.
Well, we're now moving backwards here. The police have got themselves in a real muddle because they allowed Stop Racism, some of the younger people in it, to come in from the left-hand side with Coke cans and sticks and start really hitting hard on the anti-immigration lot. And now the police are having to find themselves caught in between two lines, and they've allowed the Stand Up for Racism to come round the back of them, and now they're trying to cut a swathe through the street so as they can separate the two protests. This was a very bad police decision to do what they're doing here, because what they've ended up now doing is blocking the middle of Liverpool totally, and there is a very, very tense situation now. And you can see what they're doing. They're pushing down the street, trying to push protesters out. Yep, you can see now it's starting to kick off. There's another arrest here, and that is one of Stand Up for Racism has been arrested there. There's been about 5 arrests today, and the police are really getting pushed to control this situation. And if we just look up there you can see that is the pro-immigration protest that's there. And you can see this guy here, he's actually standing here with the flag. He's trying to actually wind them up. This is really a bad policing decision here to let this go this way. And the whole way down this street there have been scuffles like this. Liverpool is on edge at this moment, and why they allowed those attacks to come in from the left-hand side of them is shocking, to say the very least. You can see that man being cuffed on the ground now as they try to push on down the street. Let's just go with you here. We'll walk on down. We'll see the horses, the Merseyside police out, the horses trying to force it on down the street and try to clear a situation that was of the police's making. That decision, you would have to question it, there's no doubt about that. And this isn't over. It's not going to be over for a while or two, because until they get them clear of the main junction, there is a flashpoint right here, right now. So things are very on edge, and we can see there's another arrest.
If you can hear me, as we're seeing those live images there of more arrests taking place in Liverpool, a very tense situation. Who have you been speaking to on the ground there, Doogie? Have you been able to get hold of anybody?
Well, we got hold of people earlier on, but we have just lost our interview there because of that scuffle with Ben Walker, the chairman of UKIP, and he has got pushed on down the street with the police. As you can imagine, this is very much a live situation and a very tense situation that is going on right now. That man has been arrested now. I mean, they're shielding us from filming him, the police are, and we will need to get on down the street in front of this before we get locked off on the wrong side of a very bad and tense situation. So for this minute in time, we are going to have to leave you to try and make sure that we're not trapped between two lines here.
Beatty there, thank you so much for reporting live scenes there in Liverpool. It seems like the city is on a knife's edge there, as you can see those live scenes there from very brave Doogie getting you the latest on that. It does feel like not just Liverpool, but the whole country is on this knife's edge. We're talking about this autumn of discontent that is brewing in the country. Many people will be asking, why is the Home Secretary abroad at this moment in time? Where is the Prime Minister? We should be hearing some leadership on this, at least at this moment in time. Well, tensions are very high. But to talk a little bit more about this, there's joining me now is police and crime commentator and former advisor to Yvette Cooper, Danny Shaw. Danny, thank you for joining me. You can see those scenes from Liverpool there, very tense. This is a feeling up and down the country, of course, both sides there feeling extremely impassioned about their side of the political debate. Many people are asking and many people are writing into us going, where is the Prime Minister? Where is the Home Secretary? These are the sorts of moments we need to see leadership from them. Are they letting the country down?
Well, I think the Prime Minister, from what I have been reading, has been having a holiday in Scotland to which he is entitled. I think everyone would agree that cabinet ministers are entitled to have a break in the summer, and I think people function better if they have a bit of rest. He had to break up his holiday to fly to Washington. I believe the Home Secretary is away as well. She's also entitled to a break, and I know from having worked with her in opposition that she works incredibly hard. Very rarely does she take time off. So if she is having a few days off, then I think she probably deserves it. So I make no criticism of senior politicians from whatever party for having a break. The question is this situation so pressing that they have to come back and break into their holiday? I think we certainly do need to hear from senior ministers about what they intend to do about the problem with asylum hotels and the ruling which has left the government in, quite a hole. And I think a bit of leadership and a clearer statement earlier on last week, I think would have helped. But in terms of holidays, I think politicians are entitled to a break as well.
Well, let's just talk about I mean, I do agree with you, but however, I do feel when it's situations like this, when the tensions of the country are so high, this vacuum of leadership does lead to more speculation and potentially more protest. That's just my opinion, Danny. But let's talk about those asylum numbers that came out, because this is also going to be part of the reason why these protests are getting so, at least so consistent and perhaps even more tense, as we saw, the government claiming that, of course, asylum hotels are down, but actually the amount of asylum seekers in hotels is up, which suggests perhaps that there are more asylum seekers in fewer hotels across the country. People will now be asking, well, they're going to be out of these hotels and the government looks likely to end the hotel crisis if it can get on top of the border issue, first of all. They'll be going to HMOs next. Are you anticipating, Danny, that HMOs will become the next battleground, at least from both sides of the debate here?
Well, I mean, what you have to remember is that there are 70,000 asylum seekers in private rented accommodation at the moment, as well as the 32,000 who are in hotels. I don't believe that that accommodation has become a battleground. I mean, some of those will be flats with a number of people living in them. Perhaps others will be smaller houses and so on. I think the question really is that communities feel that, very suddenly a group of 200 or 300 people has been placed in a location which has usually been used for tourism and visitors and so on, and suddenly it's become somewhere for 200 single men from abroad to stay at. And I think that has been the issue. We have to face the reality that we have an asylum system at the moment that is clogged up with claims and with people appealing against those claims. You can try and process those cases as quickly as possible, and I think the government has made some improvements in that, and you can return more asylum seekers, and they have begun to do that, but it's going to take time. And even though Nigel Farage talks about using ex-military bases and so on, they can't be conjured up overnight, because when the previous government tried to use ex-military bases, they were confronted with huge objections from local people. Linton-on-Ouse was one, RAF Scampton was another. Both of those had to be abandoned. So there's no quick fix. Wherever you place asylum seekers, there will be opposition if it's in a hotel, if it's in an ex-military base, if it's in a house of multiple occupation.
But Danny, just to move on briefly, because Reform has come out and they are announcing, I believe, on Tuesday, but we know the details now, announcing on Tuesday their deportations plan, their mass deportations plan. It seems to be getting praise from at least the right of politics here, former Conservatives, as well as, of course, many Reform voters. It seems to be what many are saying is relatively comprehensive. They're going to pull out of the ECHR. They're going to detain, deport, arrest migrants. That will act surely as a deterrent for migrants coming over here. Is the Labour government just weak on this issue, won't take the tough decisions that are necessary?
Well, I think there's some things to commend in the plan from what we've seen so far. I agree with the idea of encouraging people to go back to their home countries voluntarily by giving them cash incentives. I think Nigel Farage is talking about £2,500 plus the cost of the flight. I think more needs to be done in terms of that. I think we do need to remove people who come here on small boats as quickly as possible. The government's trying to do that with a deal with France. The best option would be for them to go back to France. We don't know if the one-in, one-out policy is going to work. So I think there are some elements that I would agree with. But I think if you think that leaving the Human Rights Convention and coming out of the Human Rights Act is going to solve the problems, it won't, because many of the rights and provisions that we are entitled to as citizens of this country are actually in common law. They're not just in the Human Rights Act. They're part of the fabric of our legal system, which has grown up over a long period of time. So there will be legal challenges. And, it will take many, many years before you can, through his ideas, potentially get to a situation where this problem can be resolved. And in the meantime, more people will come across. So there may be some ideas there that are worth exploring. Certainly on the voluntary departures, I would think that is one. But it is not a quick fix.
OK, well, Danny Shaw, thank you very much for joining me, giving your take on this situation here up and down the country. Of course, Police and Crime Commissioner and former advisor to Yvette Cooper, Danny Shaw. Thank you. Well, now it's time for the Great British Giveaway, and you could live mortgage or rent-free for a year and have £5 cash, or grab yourself a 15 grand tax-free cash lump sum. Make sure you don't miss out. Here's all the details you need.
It's the final week to see how you could win your mortgage or rent paid for a whole year. That's a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, right up to a whopping £20,000. Plus, we'll add an extra £5,000 on top for good measure. And if you don't have a mortgage or rent to pay, lucky you, we'll give you £15,000 tax-free cash instead. Hurry, lines close this Friday. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, good luck, everybody. Just on that previous segment there, and lots of you are commenting on your say here. A member here has said, we're talking about common law and why this might be a battleground for a potential reform government. Well, someone says here, so amend our common law. It isn't rocket science. And that's the great thing about being in government, isn't it? You are there to write the laws. So write a law that protects British citizens, but of course sends back those that don't need to be here. I think people are fed up of hearing politicians dithering over an issue that does seem within their power to change. Why not leave these institutions that are no longer fit for purpose? We should do that. This is common sense. And the government, in my opinion, could end this within a week or so if they actually took some tough decisions. But it seems, unfortunately, we don't have quite the talent at the moment to do that. Anyway, you're with me, Alex Armstrong with GBNews. Lots more coming up on today's show, with Lucy Connelly reportedly set to meet Trump officials today. Should the United States be involved in our free speech matters? All of that and more to come. You're with GBNews, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very, very easy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back to the weekend with me, Alex Armstrong. Let me get some of your say. I mean, the general theme of your say at the moment is that, yes, you want a tough crackdown on illegal immigration into this country. And, yeah, you know what? I think that's quite reasonable for British people to want to crack down on this nonsense. It's been going on for far too long, hasn't it? Well, anyway, let's move on because other bombshell stuff. Lucy Connelly was released from prison yesterday for this week, including for inciting racial hatred online. She says she'll meet senior Trump officials today to discuss free speech. The move comes as Washington voices wider concern about Britain's approach, but should the United States really be getting involved in our free speech matters? Joining me now is Associate Editor of The Daily Skeptic, Laurie Wastel. Thank you, Laurie, for joining me. Look, lots of people saying, yes, we need the Trump administration to get involved because freedom of speech in this country is in the gutter. Some other people saying it's nothing to do with them. It's our sovereign issue. We must solve it ourselves. What's your take on it, Laurie?
Yes, well, that is a good question and one a lot of people will be thinking about. But before we get on to that, I think it's just worth noting, yes, that has been reported that there was going to be this meeting today, but that is not actually happening. I think there's been some crossed wires there. So there is no such meeting today. But it is fair to say, Alex, that there is a lot of interest in Lucy Connelly's case, in the White House, in the State Department, in America in general, and certainly in the state of free speech in Britain broadly. And one example of this we saw recently, for instance, was that the State Department came out with this report on human rights, which it does for various countries every year. And in this one was for the UK, and it said that there were significant infringements on free speech, and didn't point specifically to Lucy Connelly, pointed to other specific cases, but certainly it's very much known that her case is on their radar.
Yes, and of course, this comes at the same time that JD Vance and many departments of the United States have got involved in some British at least pushes on legislation. We've seen the government reverse its idea of breaking the encryption on Apple iPhones, which many say would have opened a back door to the mobile phones across the world. This kind of intervention from America, many will see that as a welcome intervention, including me, myself. I have to say, I'm very happy that the United States has come down tough on us on this, because I think it's very, very dangerous what the government were planning to do. But do we expect to see more of it now that someone like Lucy Connelly, who is clearly going to be the #1 person in this country talking about free speech issues in the UK, it seems to me, do we expect the United States to come even tougher on us?
Certainly, we can expect to see more of it, Alex. And so there's sort of two issues here, actually. You mentioned tech there. Of course, there's Lucy Connelly, and that really is a domestic issue of how we are applying free speech within our own country. But another thing the Americans are very concerned about is the position of their tech companies, like X and like smaller websites. There's been a dispute at the moment with the small internet website 4chan with Ofcom and the Online Safety Act. And the Americans are very concerned that our free speech laws are really trying trying to regulate not just speech in Britain, but really across the whole world. And there's a lot of anger, actually, at the really presumptiveness of Ofcom and other European censorship bodies, which frankly they are, to try and presume to say to American websites of all kinds what they can and can't publish, and even to try and fine them.
Yeah, and I guess many people will also ask, is the United States itself a bit hypocritical here? Because Donald Trump's had a lot of criticism, particularly from Democrat commentators, of cracking down on free speech in his own country. We've seen reports that the Trump administration is cracking down on people who are critical of the American government, perhaps particularly those people who are on visas. Is there a little bit of double standards under all of this?
I wouldn't say so. I would separate visa policy and free speech policy. I mean, well, the fact is that there has been a really extensive censorship apparatus, which has been the US state has been heavily involved in that. A lot of that came out with the Twitter files, with their attempts and actual influence on the 2020 election. For instance, the censorship of the Hunter Biden laptop story was a key event there, and the fact that US government officials had interfered in that was really quite extraordinary. And broadly, the efforts that the Trump administration is doing to get a grip on that and to really free up the internet is something that I think is a positive step.
And I guess what would you say to President Trump's comments when he's been sat there? You can see this meeting with Keir Starmer here, actually, on the screen at the moment. President Trump has not exactly been too disparaging of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister's had quite an open dialogue on free speech, though, of course, our own Beverly Turner, who will be launching her new show in America very shortly, actually, was asking questions about free speech in Britain. Donald Trump didn't seem to bash too many eyelashes at Trump when he was questioned on his free speech rhetoric. Is it J.D. Vance here, the man that's really driving this? Because he's been far more critical, not just of the United Kingdom, but of all of Europe.
Yes, well, we know that Trump can be quite affable if he takes a shine to someone. He seems to have a fairly solid relationship with Keir Starmer. And one of the things that is always extraordinary is apparently people like Starmer's accent in America because they think it's charming. But it seems strange to us here, but there you go. That relationship is relatively strong. But yes, J.D. Vance is the one who has his finger on the pulse on these issues. There's that key incident of him needling Keir Starmer in the Oval Office earlier this year on free speech. He's also very concerned in particular about our abortion buffer zones. And so he perhaps is leading the charge here more. But the fact that Trump may have been more diplomatic in one particular instance doesn't mean that the broad political focus of the State Department and Washington more broadly is very concerned about this issue.
And Laurie, maybe just one final comment from you on this. It seems America is, at least when it comes to free speech issues, focusing on things that may impact Americans. Is that as far as we expect the Americans to go on this topic? Because, of course, the Apple case that the government have now rescinded on would have impacted American citizens. Are we really expecting them to get involved in issues, particularly with someone such as Lucy Connelly? Maybe it's just a few reports they release, perhaps.
Yes, I mean, I think where they'll be particularly fighting is on the tech companies, as I mentioned. But there is this question of this idea of USAID, this big US aid agency, which actually a lot of it was shut down because a lot of it the Trump administration felt was funding left-wing causes all around the world. And the question now is, now that really there's been a whole value shift, a whole paradigm shift in the White House, do they want to continue those kinds of really human rights efforts, but with a different focus, so really on things like free speech instead of more woke ideology, or do they want to retrench and not do that at all and just live and let live, really? But so I think there's actually a bit of tension in the White House and the Trump administration more broadly on that. And so, well, it sort of remains to be seen. But I think, yes, they'll certainly keep up a bit of the pressure with the likes of Lucy Connelly, but the key focus will remain tech.
Oh, Laurie Rostall there, Associate Editor of The Daily Skeptic. Thank you very much for joining me. Free speech is all the rage at the moment, isn't it? We're not going to stop talking about it, I can guarantee you that. You're with me, Alex Armstrong. Lots more coming up on today's show. But first, here's your latest news headlines with Bethany Elsie.
Good afternoon. The headlines from the GB newsroom. Protesters and counter-protesters are gathering outside hotels housing migrants in towns and cities across the UK. Nigel Farage has vowed that if he becomes Prime Minister, 5 deportation flights carrying illegal migrants would leave the UK every day. Lucy Connelly, who was jailed for inciting racial hatred after the Southport murders, has accused Sir Keir Starmer of holding her as a political prisoner and says she's considering legal action against the police. Convicted sex trafficker and associate of Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, has told US officials that she never saw President Donald Trump act inappropriately. And 3 people are in a life-threatening condition after a suspected arson attack at a restaurant in East London. Police and firefighters are investigating. Those are the headlines for now. More in half an hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Oh, I promised I'd get some of you also, so let's read some of these out here. Let's start with her indoors. Oh no, we've done that. Let's say Mary Barnes here. Someone needs to protect our free speech because government clearly isn't. We can't speak up against it because we'll get arrested. I think, Mary, you probably speak for many, many people who are concerned about having your voice heard and actually the government cracking down on you on that, because where is the line these days? Where is the line? When you watch these interviews with Lucy Connelly, she clearly didn't think in her lifetime she would get locked up for saying something on Twitter. Whether you agreed with her or disagree with her, I condemn what she said, but clearly she didn't really mean to incite violence, which is what I take away from that. Many people will disagree with me, but you know, I think this is where we are in 2025 and we need to reverse it. We really, really do. I'll read some more of your says coming up soon. Remember, while you're there, gbnews.com/your say. Get involved in the conversation. Lots more coming up on today's show, including Sir Tom Jones defying a ban by belting out Delilah in Cardiff. I love this. But should the song really be banned for good? All of that and more to come. I'm Alex Armstrong and you're with GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. It's a bank holiday weekend for many parts of the UK. Initially quite cloudy, particularly through today, but there will be some sunny spells in places. You can see that high pressure over the UK at the moment. It should hold on for the next few days before then low pressure starts moving in from the Atlantic to give a bit more of an unsettled flavour as we go through next week. But lots of cloud around through this afternoon. There'll be some bright or sunny spells, best of the sunshine most likely across southwestern parts of England and perhaps northeast Scotland as well. But overall, a lot of cloud around, could be some light rain and drizzle across parts of Northern Ireland, Western Scotland, Northern England too. Temperatures here, the high teens to low 20s, perhaps up to 23 or 24 across southwest England in the best of the sunny spells. Into this evening time, some glimmers of sunshine across northeast Scotland here, temperatures 15 to 17 Celsius. A weak weather front giving some patchy light rain across western parts, which also is more evident across Northern Ireland here. 1 or 2 heavier showers possible too. The cloud thick enough for some drizzle over the high ground of Northern England into Wales as well. Otherwise, a lot of cloud to end the day. There'll be some bright or sunny spells that push through from time to time ahead of dusk. And then as we go through the evening and overnight, it should be largely dry. There will be variable amounts of cloud. Cloud thick enough for some light rain and drizzle across Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland once more, perhaps down the east coast of England too. There could be some mist and fog patches forming with light winds and generally with more cloud around. Temperatures higher than recent nights, so double figures for all. And a mixed start to Sunday morning. Some outbreaks of rain across western Scotland to start the day. Elsewhere, some bright or sunny spells. And I'm hopeful as we go through the day, there should be more in the way of sunshine across most parts. But the cloud will bubble up as we move through into the afternoon, so the sunshine will come and go. But it should just generally feel warmer for everyone, and temperatures a little higher too, reaching the mid-20s a little more widely. See you again later.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the weekend with me, Alex Armstrong. Well, this has really got you incensed online here. Sir Tom Jones has spoken out of the cancellation of his song Delilah at a gig.
You've got to be careful of politicians. You know when a politician is lying? When his lips move. But how can he? He can't stop us from singing Delilah, can he? Oh, and I used to look forward to that when I used to watch the Welsh playing rugby, and I thought, oh, here comes Delilah. Oh well, never mind. I mean, the choir can't sing it, but the audience does. Oh yes.
He's still got it, hasn't he? I mean, what a brilliant sense of humour as well. I did love the little joke he said at the start there. Well, the song, which centres on a jealous lover stabbing his unfaithful partner, was cancelled by the Welsh Rugby Union over claims it advocates domestic violence. So why should Delilah be banned? Well done to my producer for writing that one. Well, I'm joined by Deputy Editor of Spiked, Fraser Myers, and anti-knife campaigner Alison Cope. Well, I will start with you, Alison. Why should we be banning these sorts of things? I mean, most people aren't going to listen to this song and all of a sudden commit a domestic offence, are they really?
No, I don't think they are. But I think, you know, even your previous topic was very much focused on words and people reacting to those words. And I think we're in a position now where there's a lot of young people predominantly that are influenced by the words that are spoken online. So I think targeting Tom Jones and targeting a song that a lot of people hold very close to their heart isn't necessarily the right way to do things, but we definitely need to be held accountable for what kind of words are being promoted in society, because sadly there are some people that are take it upon themselves to act on what they're hearing and seeing online. So I think, as I said, targeting Tom Jones, targeting this song, what about the thousands and thousands of videos all over the internet promoting stabbings, violence, harming women? Are we going to ban those? Probably not. So let's not just pick on one issue. Let's look at the wider issue that we're facing.
OK, Fraser, I'll bring you in on this. Very interesting times, because, of course, we've had debates similar to this with things like Grand Theft Auto, the game that many young people play, and there was a big fear back in the day that this would cause this massive spike in violence and murder. Should we be banning stuff like this?
No, it's never really the case that media or culture or, songs like this actually influence people to commit terrible deeds. And, let's look at the context here. This is a great, fun Tom Jones song that people sing in crowds at the rugby. They're enjoying the lyrics, they're enjoying the tune. They probably don't even get to the end of the song where suddenly, the twist is that he stabs the woman. I don't think anyone would come away from listening to that song thinking that Tom Jones is in favour of killing women. I think people are perfectly capable of understanding that it's a work of fiction. And so, let's take people seriously. Let's trust them to have a laugh, enjoy this song, and not ban it.
Yeah, Alison, I think there's a point to be made here that we constantly try to desensitise things in society, and that we can't trust individuals to make good decisions because of things like a song, for example. I mean, when I was a kid in school, we were reading poetry that would talk about potentially stabbing people, and I haven't gone around and committed any stabbings yet, so just unless I'm going to have a mental breakdown and do it. So, Alison, I mean, listen, I think we really do need to have a serious conversation about the cultural aspects of this, because we keep on banning things. The Welsh Rugby Union, I think, is massively overreacted here. Of course, there's a serious issue about knife crime in this country, but some of our comments coming here from our audience saying, well, they don't ban drill songs, and drill songs are very violent.
They should, and this is my argument. We're focusing on one song, making a big deal out of it without actually looking at the bigger issue, which is the fact that, a certain generation of people, different people, will have the intelligence and the knowledge that the lyrics and the game aren't real life, and they'll take that and they'll never dream of picking up a weapon. But, I'm sure on a previous show, we've had many guests talk about the huge increase of violence towards women. young people committing horrendous crimes, and so it's a bigger issue. It's not Tom Jones that's the issue. It's not Delilah that's the issue. The issue is we have a problem with some, and that's the whole thing, some people living their life through the media, whether it be violence against women, whether it be violence between young people. So we're not saying it's this song, it's this issue, it's a wider issue that needs a wider conversation.
So Alison, just so I'm clear, because I want to pass it back to Fraser in a second, just so I'm clear, would you ban music that contains any reference to knife violence? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, 100%. I work with around 4,000 young people a week. I see day in, day out young people copying what they're seeing online, sending pictures of weapons, making threats, thinking it's acceptable. So if we have a bigger conversation of the fact that some, and I say some, young people need better guidance, better morals instilled into them, you know, it's a conversation that we need to have that isn't just focusing on one song, one ban. It's a much bigger problem, unfortunately.
Fraser, I mean, I understand what Alison's saying, and I am very worried about knife crime, particularly here in the capital in London, which is spiralling out of control. But is it because of music? Is it because of culture? Or is it because we have a lack of authority and the police are failing?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, you need a policing response to these things. You need a broader social response to these things. A lot of people coming from, you know, very troubled families and things like that, not having authority in the home. Those are much wider issues. And I worry that focusing on media or on music is a bit of a distraction. And it's interesting. I mean, you know, to bring it back to Delilah, there has been a campaign to ban this for 10 years. And it's on the basis this belief that people mostly will commit domestic violence has actually been what people have been arguing against. And I think it's basically driven a lot of the time by a kind of class prejudice, that, you know, view that these Welsh rugby fans, they can't be trusted. They'll hear this song or they'll sing along to this song and they go home and beat their wife because that's kind of what they're like. There's no real... You know, there's no evidence to back this up. And it's funny and, you know, and quite telling, actually, there's no campaign to ban Carmen the Opera, which, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, right at the end, she is murdered because she leaves her husband for a bullfighter. But, you know, it's a different class of people we're talking about. So some people are clearly trusted to listen to songs that involve killing and other people are not. And I think that's unfair.
Yeah, I mean, Alison, I'll pass this back to you. I mean, I understand where you're coming from. I do, as I said, I do worry about knife crime. But it seems to me that we'll be punishing the many for the sake of the few, and that actually we could do better by cracking down on knife crime, by getting tougher policing and just focusing on things like that, rather than trying to ban things that are potentially part of our culture. Delilah is a very strong part of the Welsh culture and identity. And I feel like perhaps that's part of the issue that we have when dealing with things like knife crimes. We're tackling all the wrong things.
And I agree with that. We are tackling the wrong things. We will take one incident, focus on it, talk about it, and not address all the underlying reasons behind it. Of course, people aren't going to hear a song, go out and kill someone. There'll be a lot of issues if anyone makes that choice, and it won't be a song that triggers it. My argument is that we need to generally be doing a much better job of giving people, and predominantly young people, in my opinion, the knowledge and the influence and the guidance that a lot of them are lacking at the moment. So, you know, my son was murdered, stabbed to death, so I have a lot of experience around this, and a lot of influences played a role that the young man that murdered him thought that a certain kind of behaviour was acceptable, if only we'd have focused on the underlying issues. So, you know, we could have banned everything and my son probably would have still been murdered. We have to target the minority that take it upon themselves to think this kind of behaviour is acceptable. So again, you know, picking on Tom Jones, picking on Delilah is you know, a waste of a lot of people's energy. And I think we need to focus on the bigger picture here.
I think we can all agree on that, Alison. And I would say this. I'd say I would like the government to be much tougher. I would like there to be much tougher on knife possession, particularly when young people are caught with it. I think we need to crack down, particularly in our cities where this is really thriving amongst young people, where this culture of carrying weapons seems to be becoming popularised. And we do need to crack down on those things. But I do think a lot of it starts with the parents at home. Many of those kids are, you know, not being looked after properly, in my opinion. But, of course, there's lots more involved in that. We could do a whole debate on that itself, and Alison, we'll have you back for that. Thank you very much for joining us. Deputy Editor of Spiked, Fraser Myers, thank you to, and Alison Cope, the anti-knife campaigner. Thank you very much, both of you. Well, a big debate there on knife crime that, of course, we'll keep on having in this country because those numbers are spiralling out of control. We really are. But in some more positive news, if we search for some holiday sun, here is the forecast for some of our top European destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's a bit of a mixed bag across Europe as we go through the next few days. There is some rain pushing into parts of Portugal, also affecting southwestern Spain as we go into tomorrow, but most of Spain actually having a largely fine day. A few showery outbreaks affecting parts of Italy, Greece and maybe Turkey too, but these won't be as heavy nor as thundery as we've seen recently. And then through into next week, whilst most places will stay largely fine, across some areas, France, Germany for example, the risk of some heavy thundery downpour.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
All right, you're with me, Alex Armstrong on GB News. Oh, yes, I just love it. Isn't this the man a legend? I mean, why would we not want to hear that man's voice again? That's such an iconic song. I know, Lisa, you said no, Delilah should not be banned. Tom, sing it loud. I totally agree with you, Lisa. Anyway, coming up, Spurs, of course, an upset. We'll have the latest sport with Aidan McGee. All of that and more to come here with GB News Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Our reporter Anna Riley is in Ilkley. Hello.
Hello.
Oh,
Hey, by gum, what accents you've got there this morning. Happy Yorkshire Day and welcome to Ilkley. It certainly is God's own country, is Yorkshire. Absolutely splendid place, and of course we're so proud of our culture. We've got our own language, we've got our own sayings, and it's just a beautiful part of the world. Celebrated every year on the 1st of August. It's arranged by the Yorkshire Society, and it's all about celebrating our heritage, and it's going to be great for businesses as well as the town here today. We're going to have a procession of mayors coming through later this morning, the largest gathering of civic mayors in the world, and we're going to hear the town crier and also on Ilkley Moor bar taps, which means on Ilkley Moor without your hats. The unofficial anthem of Yorkshire is going to be sung. We're joined this morning now by Joe Smith. He's the retail manager of Lishman's of Ilkley, and of course a butcher with a pork pie. Good morning. Good morning. Tell us about Yorkshire Day and what it means to you.
So Yorkshire Day for us is very good for the business and all the local authorities. It brings all people down to the shop celebrating Yorkshire Day. I think today will especially be great.
What is it about Yorkshire folk and about the countryside that we've got here as well, the moors, and what do you think draws people here?
Well, it's just the natural beauty, and it's away from everything. You know, we're not in the city, we're in a really nice kind of area.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
Oh, sport's back, isn't it? It's time to get all the latest with sports broadcaster Aidan McGee. Aidan, lovely to see you again, my friend.
You too, Alex.
Sport is back. Yeah, it wasn't long enough, but we had a break, is it?
One place to start. I mean, we saw that momentous result for Chelsea last night at West Ham, but that's almost been superseded in some ways because unexpectedly, against all the odds, Tottenham have gone to Manchester City this lunchtime and pulled off a 2-0 victory. Now, the context of this is that earlier in the week, they were humiliated, really. That's what their fans were saying. That's not me saying that. It's their fans saying that because they thought they had the England international, the Crystal Palace player, Berriese, in the bag, ready to sign, and who comes and scuppers the deal, comes from left field. They're great rivals from just 2 or 3 miles down the road in N5, and that's Arsenal, of course, who look as if they're going to schedule the medical. They're playing tonight at 5:30 against Leeds. I'm going to be at that game actually, but they've pinched the player from under the Spurs' nose, and huge disappointment there. So the last thing you want is an early kick-off on a Saturday away to Manchester City. Who looked imperious last week at Wolves as they won 4-0. They're going to be among the title favourites this season, even despite today's result. No one's been talking about them that much. Maybe today was why those who watch them locally in the Manchester area maybe don't think as highly of their chances as we do down here, because Tottenham were really superior there today. 2 goals in the first half. Thomas Frank said before the match, I'm positive. Don't worry about all the stuff that's going on around here. Don't worry about all the noise. Don't worry about all the negativity. Yes, we've missed out on a player, but there are other players available, and I'm confident in the players we've got. And as I say, they've gone to the Etihad today, and they pulled off a stunning result.
Brilliant stuff. Brilliant stuff. I mean, on top of all of that, we've also got the US Open kicking off. Seriously, I mean, it's
tomorrow,
brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, this is the tennis, of course. A few lines knocking around with at the start of the tournament at Flushing Meadow. The first one is that, most importantly, Jannik Sinner is fit and healthy. He is the holder. He is the world #1. He played the Cincinnati Open final earlier in the week against his great rival Carlos Alcaraz, and it's a relief to tennis as a whole, really, because you need those rivalries in sport, and this is the one that's going to carry tennis into the next generation. It's Sinner, Alcaraz, 4 Grand Slams to Alcaraz. 4 Grand Slams to Sinner, 5 to Alcaraz. An epic final at the French Open earlier in the year, which Alcaraz won. An epic final at Wimbledon, which Sinner won. Who wins now? Well, the thing is, earlier in the week, Sinner was unwell, clearly, you know, not himself on court. He was 5-0 down against Alcaraz before saying, I can't go any far. He cancelled a doubles match the following day, but he did reveal yesterday, I am fit, I'm raring to go, ready to defend his title. And he's in action on Monday as well, despite the tournament getting underway tomorrow. Later on as well, we've got Emma Raducanu, who's in action tomorrow, not later on. She's been saying that this mixed doubles short form of the game, which they played last week, she played with Alcaraz, giving rise to all sorts of suspicions about their relationship. She's saying that we need more of that $1 million prize fund. Maybe Wimbledon could do it next year or the year after, or the other Grand Slams. And this was interesting as well. Djokovic calling, Novak Djokovic, former world #1, record men's Grand Slam winner. He was saying we need more prize money in tennis. Now, this might surprise you, Scott. I've got some figures for you here.
Go on, then.
The winner of the US Open, and this is a 20% increase announced this year, will get £3.7 million. That's men and women. Wimbledon, 3 million. French Open, 2.1 million. Australian Open, 1.7 million. So that's put the pressure on the other slams to increase their money. It sounds greedy, but Djokovic is making clear, as a senior pro in the game, he is fighting this cause for the lower-ranked players. Now, I'll give you another figure here. If you finish in the first round at Wimbledon, you get £66,000. If you get to the last 16, it's £240,000. It sounds a lot, but there are a lot of expenses to come out of that.
Indeed.
Not least tax.
And we want our great sportsmen back, don't we? I feel like we're finally getting somewhere.
We want us to be rich as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I want them to be. I want them to. They work bloody hard for what they do, don't they? But there we go. Aidan McGee, thank you so much.
Good to see you, Alex.
I will be back later on for the Saturday 5. Please join me. But Dawn is now going to be taking over for Nana. I'm sure she's not too upset about the Chelsea result, but there we go. See you soon.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.